the appointed hour. I call to order the New Bern Historic Preservation Commission. Could we have a roll call, sir?
Certainly. George Brake.
Here.
Trip Geary.
Here.
Kristen Evans.
Here.
Ellen Sheridan.
Here.
Peggy Broadway.
Here.
James Bisbee.
Here.
Joe Klotz is absent. James Woods, absent. And Ruth Cox.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. I call for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Being none opposed, it passes. Let me read an introduction here to the hearings and how the hearings will go. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based on U.S. Department of Interior standards, state standards, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who receive notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinions, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decisions on an application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. Sir, can you swear in anyone who wants to make a presentation tonight?
Yes. Okay, so anyone who will be speaking this evening, please just stand where you're at for the moment, and then raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, and then come on up one at a time and sign your name. Print your name and sign your name, please. I'm going to go check the front door.
Okay. Here is a summary of how we will conduct a hearing for a COA application. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application. The applicant or representative presents the application if they have comments. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HPC administrator presents the staff's findings and recommendations. The applicant or their representative has an opportunity to make final comments on their application. Commissioners discuss the evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant or presenters. The chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated finding of fact. The motion is discussed by the commission. The chairman calls for a vote on the motion by the commission. A COA can be approved with conditions, or can be denied. So can we, let's see, start with the first application that we have?
Yes. First application is 419 Metcalf Street. So this is the application that has been continued for the past several months, 419 Metcalf Street. This is the application and signature.
If you have the pictures, that would be good. I'll just pull it up there.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Oh, wait a minute. Just to get the application in the record here, these are the photographs that were submitted back then, and then also some staff photographs. We also have the zoning and inspections report, and then the recommendations when you're ready. The applicant, however, does have change in the proposal.
Yes. So I took Tripp's advice and I sought to move that whole thing on the front of the house inside. And I have indeed found a contractor to do exactly that. Okay. So there will be no exterior proponents of that whole thing on the front of the house on the outside. So that entire business will be inside that HVAC duct. So I finally found a guy that was willing to come out and do that. So
is that the same with the side as this corner as well?
No, that'll stay if that's okay. So but the entire front thing, which was really I think the big part that everybody had a problem with, will all be inside. So the front of the house will essentially look the way it did previously before this. So we can take care of all that. I've got a guy on hold as soon as we're approved to just do all that work, move it inside, and then that should hopefully take care of any objections. That was a great idea. So I was like, ooh.
Takes a team effort.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming out and looking. Because honestly, nobody had suggested that. And when you did, I said, well, let me just find someone that's, willing to look at this and do that. And so he said, yeah, we can do that. And I was like, great. So it was a referral from a neighbor. So it was perfect.
Good deal.
Okay.
You ready for recommendations?
Yes. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I believe I'm recused from voting on this matter because my new street house is next door to this house.
Okay, so we need to recuse you? Okay, well, let us do that. Okay, all those in favor of letting you leave us for a little bit, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none, if you would like to have a seat.
Out there.
You can put me down for that motion and the one before.
I seconded it.
Okay.
And Jim seconded it.
Okay, so the applicant has presented the changes that were asked for when he's worked with us for a little while. And so are there any people in the audience who are notified proponents of this? Opponents of this? Seeing none, there doesn't need to be any rebuttal. Is there anyone in the audience with relevant information and has standing that would like to present? Seeing none, we will move on and hear the staff's recommendations for this project.
Okay, so this is for the house owned by Chris McGrath and Cher Durham, at 419 Metcalf Street. It is also known as the Clark Welsh House. It is a contributing structure, and according to the National Register inventory description, was built circa 1800. It is 2 stories with steep gambrel roof, 2 bays wide, 3 bays deep. The entrance is in the left front bay. 1-story gable end wing on the north side of the main block abuts the exterior end chimney. There is also an extensive description by Sandbeck, also providing the same approximate construction date. I guess you will all have read that prior to the meeting. So this project, 419 Metcalf Street, to include installation and screening of a mechanical unit in the primary AVC. This is an after-the-fact application. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Utilities 2.3.1 and 2. Modifications 3.2.1 and 2. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is site work within the primary AVC. 2, the proposed design components and materials do not meet the requirements of the guidelines. Although now with the testimony just previous to this, that can be revised. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And the project as it exists is, I suppose, congruous with the guidelines. So the motion is staff recommends the commission approve with conditions this application to include installation and screening of a mechanical unit in the primary AVC, citing the aforementioned guidelines. And the conditions for approval that we recommend are: 1, to ensure current and subsequent owners will maintain full screening of the HVAC unit and submit such documentation to the HPC administrator. 2, he's already proposed to relocate the line sets to minimize visual impact on the structure to the maximum extent possible. So that would be eliminated. And then 3, not both of the aforementioned recommendations, but just the aforementioned recommendation is to be achieved within 6 months of this meeting.
I do have my contractor lined up, and he said, he could fit me in within 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep. So if the applicants are not agreeable to these conditions, we recommend denial of the application, and the applicant will need to obtain an appropriate COA by moving this HVAC unit to a compliant location and locating the line sets as approved by the HPC at that time. So that's our recommendation.
I will comply with all the recommendations as forwarded, and the removal of the line set on the front of the house to make sure it goes, inside there as discussed. And I didn't see anything there I could not comply with.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any evidence or testimony to be presented by any state, city, or government body? Seeing none, does the applicant have any other comments you'd like to make, sir?
No, ma'am.
We appreciate you getting this done. Members of the commission, does anyone at this point have any questions, comments?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank Chris for cooperating, and I was rather sincere. It's a team effort because you're actually going to make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
And it won't hurt my feelings if you take credit for the idea.
Well, you're the one that said it.
I understand, but that's the nature of a team. So
Well, I appreciate
you
that.
sell it any way you need to sell it.
Well,
So.
like I said originally, I don't want to be at odds with HPC.
Well, we
Nobody
appreciate
does.
it.
I'm downtown.
So-
I'm in one of the oldest houses in New Bern, and so too sure I can't be at odds with you guys. So, and your suggestion, honestly, is one that not only I had considered, but my previous contractors had not.
Yeah.
So, when you made that observation, it was great. So I really appreciate you not only taking time to come out and look at it, but making a very credible, a suggestion.
No problem. We'll put you on a testimonial in the next edition of the guidelines. Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
I'm ready to
assuming
hear
there-
your motion.
Unless there are any other questions.
Anyone have any other questions? Not at this time.
So I move that we find the application for 419 Metcalf Street to to be congruous with historic district guidelines, citing section 15411 to 15429 and New Bern's historic district guidelines themselves, specifically utilities 2.3.1, 2.3.2, modifications 3.2.2, and I'm intentionally skipping the one on the sheet. My statement of reasons being that this property is on a corner lot, and so it actually has two primary areas of visual concern. And you've agreed to eliminate the line set from between the windows, which at least was my source of anxiety. And also, we take no exception to your maintaining the line set that essentially runs parallel to the corner and the gutter on the other facade.
Right.
And then, lastly, once that work is implemented, that it will be congruous with the historic district guidelines. I've got 3 conditions. The first being to provide whatever paperwork that staff had spoke of earlier for their permanent file. Or actually 2, and then the third being that even though you've got the work lined up for our purposes, you have 6 months to implement the change.
Right. I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Honestly, my wife will be a lot happier too.
I bet.
Well, you're in good stead if she's happy.
Trip, what was condition number 2?
That's 6 months.
Oh, so only 2 conditions.
Yeah, I think I
Sorry.
covered the third one in the others.
Second motion.
The motion has been seconded. Are there any questions at this point from anyone? Seeing none. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, hearing none, the vote passes. Do I have a motion to approve the COA?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Tripp has done the second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it is approved, sir. And we thank you for your attention to the detail. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your cooperation and the suggestions, and you hear horror stories, and I have experienced none of those things every time I've come before this commission. So,
Well, that's good. We will bring you back periodically to have you testify. Let's say, let this man over here talk.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
I move that we bring Ms. Sheridan back to the board.
Okay, all of those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Ma'am, come back this way.
I heard George second that.
Who's this contractor he found?
Carrie.
Who was the contractor?
Who motioned and seconded that?
I'd be interested.
You didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
I don't
George
know.
motioned and Tripp second? Was that?
That'd be fine.
What?
That'd be fine.
Yes, that's what happened.
Okay, 1229 National Avenue.
Oh, 1229. Oh, I see. I got you. Sorry. Yep, okay. We'll get to that in a second. So the next application is for 1229 National Avenue. And this is their application. That has indeed been signed. And the supplemental information is also provided here, project information and detailed description of the materials. And the materials list for the carport and workshop, I guess, is more of the same, more of the information required. This is, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, their aerial view of their property, and then in the middle of the site here is the depiction of the roof of the carport. So this is the previous drawing of the carport shown on their survey plan. Let's see. And they have shifted the carport 5 feet closer to the property line. So they've provided the drawings to accompany that. So this is that same aerial. And there we go. You can see here it's a little bit closer in the aerial. Then there we go. Same thing on the survey plan. And then in a little bit we'll see the floor plan, but we'll get to that in a second. Let me move back over to the laptop. So here are some images of the house from the front. There is now a driveway, 2-tire track driveway going from the street along the left side of the house to the gate in the fence back there behind that tree. This is an image provided by the applicant of the front of the house, showing the hip roof as a form of the home, which is then recreated in the carport. And so here's a side elevation of the carport, the elevation that faces the yard. This is a sample of another carport somewhere else with a similar kind of construction and overall appearance, except that here the cars drive in the side and he will be driving them in the 2 cars in the end. And also, instead of 4 bays, they will have 3.5 bays, essentially. The 1.5 bay at the end will be enclosed as a workshop, all the way across the full width of the carport. There are some other illustrations for this. So there again, that's that same side. You can see this is that enclosed portion on the right for the workshop. And these 2 white areas are actually open through the entire structure. This is a rear view. We're looking at the back wall of the workshop, 2 windows. This is a front view looking through the carport. 2 cars could be parked in here facing in, one on the left and one on the right. And that doorway is at the back of the carport on the wall of the workshop. So the workshop actually has 2 doors. One on the outside facing the yard and the one inside facing into the carport. So, and then this is the opposite side facing the neighbor with the workshop wall here on the left, and then the opening for the carport's car park area on the right. Okay. This is a drawing of the roof of the structure, and you can see it's a straightforward hip roof. The structure overall is 20 feet wide. The overhang is 2 feet all around, and the structure is 35 feet long, again with the 2-foot overhang on the front and the back. So this is the plan which is replaced by the new one. So we're going to go to this. I don't know what that is. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to slide it around a little bit, but the main difference between this and what we've seen before is that the setback to the side is now 5 feet to the post instead of 10 feet. So
Say that again, it's what instead of what?
It's now 5 feet from the post to the property line instead of 10 feet.
Okay, it's moved it over 5 feet.
Right, and the requirement is 3 feet. Or the minimum amount of setback is 3 feet, so they're still 2 feet better than that.
Okay.
Then that changes the driveway configuration slightly, so now it's more straightforward. Each car goes a little bit left or a little bit right. And that also brings it farther away from the corner, where it was pretty tight before. Also, before the walkway continued straight all the way back to the door on the side, that's now been truncated, and just the walkway goes into the carport here in this corner. Otherwise, everything is pretty much the same. Well, plus there's a little bit more space here than there was before. But this stairway is being removed, so it's really just, there's more space all the way across here. Let's see. That pretty much summarizes that one. They did also provide this time a new drawing, which may help a little bit. There you go, three-dimensional sketch. You can see the workshop area with the double doors
okay.
here,
Yes.
and then the single door underneath inside, right?
Mhm.
And then they'll drive the cars in the front here, left side and right side,
That's a good sketch.
okay?
Mhm. That's a good picture.
Yeah, and then showing also the sidewalk here. And the driveway coming in. I have a glare there, I can't see, but can you see that okay? So, all right. So we'll continue on. So we just went over that. And so these are now photographs of the existing condition. You can see the two-tire track driveway now will be, once you get to the gate, will be replaced by a concrete pad apron in front of the carport, and then the carport will be standing back here where this tree is standing, actually. So, and you can maybe see some tiny little stakes in the ground back here that are the back corners of the carport approximately. The tree becomes, the removal of the tree is also part of the application, and replacement of the tree is part of the application. Again, another view of that location. Now this is looking back towards the house. Here are the two stakes, and then the tree, and then the tire tracks. This is the set of stairs I mentioned would be removed, which is next to the gate. And then the other set of stairs that's to be removed is this set of stairs that's coming off the deck. And I think I explained that before, but if you want a further explanation of the revisions to the deck, I can explain that again if you'd like. Let's see. So I guess maybe I can just say that that second set of stairs is here. It's to be removed. This corner of the deck in this area is to be removed. And then because you'll need steps down from their enclosed screen porch here, they will be adding new steps here, and also new steps from the porch next to the kitchen, so down there. And I think we have our zoning and inspection report here. The only comment is that this must be in compliance with a 5-foot side yard setback, and it will require a building permit. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So, would the applicant have any other ideas or anything he'd like to share at this time?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have any proponents of this project in the audience? Any opponents? Seeing none, we will not have any rebuttal. Is there anyone in the audience with relative evidence and has standing who would like to present any information? Seeing none. Sir, if you can give us the staff findings and recommendations.
Certainly. So this is an application by Brian and Kathy Hamilton for 1229 National Avenue, and also known as the J.O. Baxter House. It is a contributing resource in the Riverside Historic District. The National Register inventory description from 1988 is that it was built in 1910, and then there is this paragraph of description about it. It does include this about a hipped roof on it in the description. Then the owner pointed out there's a typo here where it says 1223. It's not 1223, it's 1229 National Avenue. And this project is to include construction of a carport and a concrete driveway apron, revisions to the deck, and replacement of a tree in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For landscaping, 2.4.1 and 3. For guidelines for accessory structures, 2.6.1 and 2. For parking, 2.7.1 and 2. Design principles, 3.1.1. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2. Decks and patios, 4.6.1 and 2. For wood, 5.2.2. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. And so our statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. 2, the proposed accessory structure, driveway apron, and deck modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historically significant design components or architectural features. 3, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include construction of a carport and a concrete driveway apron, revisions to the deck, and replacement of a tree in the secondary and tertiary AVCs.
Is there anybody who has evidence or testimony from any state, city, or government body? Seeing none. Does the applicant have any final comments, sir?
I don't. I think it's pretty well covered there. Thank you.
Thank you. So, commission members, what questions do you have? Comments do you have?
Brian, can I ask, what type of trees are you going to be replacing with?
At this point, I'm considering a mulberry tree. I looked it online to find out that it was it would grow to a similar height of the current tree. That's all I'm considering right now. I noticed one comment here said I need to consult an arborist for the removal. Mm-hmm. So an arborist has to remove the tree? Is that what it's saying?
So I'm not quite sure what the comment actually says, but I believe it says that normally an arborist would be required, but in this case, because it's necessary, just because the structure will be there, an arborist will not be necessary.
But for the recommendation of a tree, then I would consult an arborist on that.
Yeah.
We worked with one for some landscaping, so we'll talk with him and
Okay.
get his ideas on something similar to replace.
And you're doing one in the secondary and one in the tertiary area?
Trees? No, just one. Just
Yeah.
one tree.
Okay.
Just one tree, though, babe. Just
Yep, one for
or
one.
replace one tree. So I would ask that you, to finish up the application, that you do that consultation and then put in the application or let Matt know what kind of tree you're going to use to replace and where on your property you're going to put that tree. So whoever makes a recommendation, if you can add that. Okay, do we have any other questions at this time? I see no's, okay. So does somebody want to make a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that we find the application for certificate of appropriateness for 1229 National Avenue to be not incongruous with numerous code of ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, of New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines are 2.4.1, 2.4.3, 2.6.1, 2.6.2, 2.7.1, 2.7.2, 3.1.1, 4.2.4, 4.2.5, 4.3.2, 4.6.1, 4.6.2, 5.2.2, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.4.4. Findings of fact: the project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. The proposed accessory structure, driveway apron, and deck modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historically significant design components or architectural features. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines. I'd like to offer the following condition: that before the new tree is planted, that the applicant consult with our HBC administrator as to the placing and the type of tree that will be used.
Second.
Okay. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Can I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second.
Is a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those against? Hearing none, a COA can be given to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
And thank you for such a very thorough application.
Okay, so 223 National Avenue.
1223 National Avenue.
Oh, did I say?
This is the Wrights, and they are on our Zoom, so let's see. You can see them now, at least Ms. Wright.
Yes, I have Mr. Wade on the phone. He's not here with me.
Good, and you can see our screen here. It shows your application at the moment.
No, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay, wait, I will do that.
Okay, so,
There you go. Now, can you see it?
Matt, yes. No, I can't. Yes, I can now. Hey, Matt, Bruce is online. He's trying to get in. If you would let him in.
Okay, then the next thing we have to do is swear you both in.
Okay.
Is Bruce able to hear me at the moment?
Yeah, you can let him into the room. He's
I see.
He's trying to get
Okay.
in.
Let's make this bigger so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. We are admitting him at the moment. Okay.
Okay, fine.
So, this is Teams and not Zoom, so how do I see all the people? Currently, we see Gene.
I don't have a camera on mine.
Yeah, Bruce doesn't have a camera.
Oh, okay, all right. So fine. All right then. Can you both raise your right hand, not that we can see Bruce, right? And do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I guess you can't sign your name over here in the room, but, okay, thank you. We know who you are.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I will minimize that, I think, and go back to the application. There we go. Okay, oops, you disappeared, but you can still see, right?
Yes.
Bruce, can you see, or you're just listening?
Yes.
Okay.
I can see the application.
The application, okay. So this is the application, and then at the bottom we have their most recent signature. So this is the most recent application. And as you may remember, theirs is the house in the middle here. And the aerial view shows, over here on the left, shows the house in the middle. And they're all very close together, you can see here. This is kind of a plan view of their property. And we're only talking about things on the very back of the house here. And last meeting, we approved the various modifications. This being the existing conditions on the left, the back of the house, and then the space between the houses on this side of the house. On the other side of the house, still the back of the house, and then looking along that side, this is the current back wall of the kitchen, and then the back entry area, and then this is the entire rear view. If anyone needs to see those any bigger, let me know. So this is what we approved at the last meeting, or you approved at the last meeting. This upper roof is existing, the existing roof that's there now. And then we approved them to do this addition coming out the back of their kitchen, back to this point here, and then a roof sloping from underneath the existing roof out to this end here. So they would like to modify that roof, or both of those roofs, to be this instead. So they would be removing the existing roof that's over the back half of their kitchen, and also the back half of that rear entry foyer on the other side of the building, and put one roof over all of that plus the new addition and the new screen porch on the other side. So we'll go to the other side and see the same thing. This is what was previously approved. This is now looking at the screen porch on this side. And this is that back rear entry. They happen to have some stairs in there and such. And this would then be that same roof again, carrying across to the other side. This is essentially like a hipped roof. And we'll see, I think, the rear elevation. That was what it was before. This is what they'd like to do now. Although this said, they indicate that the peak of the roof does not actually end up in the middle or up into the windows here. Either the peak is lower or the windows are higher, but they do not overlap in the current design. So, and then, I'm not sure. So this is the existing, the proposed floor plan that was approved. So let me back up. So this is the existing wall here, across here. And that's their existing kitchen with the kitchen window and the stairway I mentioned. So that's existing up to here. We approved them to extend the kitchen out and to add a screen porch, and then also to add this open deck and stairs. So now that roof will extend over all of this. It's been dashed in here around the perimeter like that. So that represents the eave or the edge of the roof. And this is a very light drawing. You may not, oh yeah, you can actually see it better on the screen, on the TV screen than on the laptop here. Represents how you can see how there's a ridge down the middle, and then they have a hipped kind of configuration on the end. All right, and then these were some more of the photographs from the previous application about the screen porch. If we want to reference that, we can.
This is the zoning and inspections report that's been created new for this one. So it meets the zoning and land use requirements, and it will require building permits still. And then we're ready with recommendations when you are.
Okay. Sir, do you all have any additional information to share? Hearing none.
Well, you're asking the rights?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did you hear that? Oh,
Yes, Bruce, you can unmute.
I did not hear it.
Do you have any other information you'd like to share other than what Matt has already given us?
That the building permit is already issued, and we're just waiting to pick it up.
Okay. Are there any proponents of this in the audience? Seeing none. Any opponents? Seeing none. There's only 2 people in the audience, let me say that. There'll be no rebuttal. Does anyone have any relative evidence and has standing that would like to present? Seeing none. Sir, can we have your findings?
yes, certainly. So this is an application by Bruce and Jean Wright. Project address is 1223 National Avenue. The historic property name is Street Lloyd Kennedy House, and it's a contributing structure in the Riverside Historic District. The National Register inventory description for that cites the house as being built circa 1912. And hopefully you had an opportunity to read a little bit about the history of that particular house. Let's see, it does mention a hip dormer. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's just the front. So, and Sandbeck had no description of the house. So the project for 1223 National Avenue, here it's correct, to include revising the approved plans for an addition, changing the roof configuration in the Tertiary AVC. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application for design principles 3.1.1, modifications 3.2.1, for additions 3.3.1 through 3, for roofs 4.5.1 and 4.5.4, for wood 5.2.1 and 2, for metals 5.3.2, for paint 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. So the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the Tertiary AVC. The proposed modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historically significant design components or architectural features. 3, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So the staff recommends the commission approve this application for revising the approved plans for an addition, changing the roof configuration in the Tertiary AVC.
Thank you. Is there anybody who wants to provide testimony from any state, city, or government entity? Seeing none. Are there any final comments by the applicant? Can they hear me?
Rights, do you have any other comments?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. Members of the commission, what comments, questions do you have at this point? Hearing none, seeing none. Can we have a motion related to this project?
I move that we find the application for 1223 Nation Avenue, a certificate of appropriateness, to be not incongruous. Is that correct? Yes. With the New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historical District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and finding of fact. The guidelines is for the design principles 3.1.1, modifications 3.2.1, additions 3.3.1, 3.3.2, 3.3.3, roofs 4.5.1, 4.5.4, wood 5.2.1, 5.2.2, metals 5.3.2, paint 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. The finding of fact, the project is located within the Tertiary AVC. The proposed modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historical significant design components or architectural features. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Can I have a,
So I think this is an amendment.
do what?
Oh, it's an amendment to a previously approved COA. Yes,
Okay.
so we could do it that way.
So I don't have to go any further,
Correct.
okay? So it's passed as an amendment, right?
Yes.
Okay? All right.
I should have a proposed amendment.
All right.
I think you still.
Let us then go to 413 George Street.
I think you were.
All right, so this is the application for 413 George Street. And you can see it's filled out and has a signature here at the bottom and some additional information about the materials that were continued from the application. Here's an aerial of the property highlighted in blue and somewhat L-shaped. And the area we are talking about is this section of the property here. So that also shows up then on a plan later. So this is a view from the front, looking at the right side, which is not affected by this application. And then a view from the left side where the addition that we're talking about is back here behind this first addition, back here in the back. So here is the aforementioned plot plan, and yes, you can see up there on the screen, this shaded area is the area that's being proposed. Two things to note. So for some reason, I don't have the most recent, oh yes, I do. Must be the next one. No. There is a more recent one. Because of this 3.79 foot dimension here has been revised to 5 foot, 4.4 or something, I believe. Yeah, he moved it a foot, 10 inches in. So this corner here will now not be flush, but will actually be recessed slightly, crossing across the bottom of the numbers 8 and 2 here. And then it will, however, be flush with the back wall of the other addition on this house. So, and I suspect that drawing may come up again, but so here we have the front of the house again, and the side. You can see the side of the house as well. Again, we're talking about this area back here behind this addition. So that's a more recent photograph. Looks a little bit better than the previous one. So here is the area that we're talking about. This grassy area is where the new addition will be, and the wall will be the rear wall of the new addition will be flush with this wall here on the left with the blue door. The blue door will be removed, and 2 windows will be placed at the top of the doorway there. This window here will be removed and replaced with some doors. Interior to the addition. The addition is actually a screened porch, so I keep referring to it as an addition. I just zoomed past that picture there. That is a photograph from the neighboring property, and that addition is way back here. You can see this gable roof and the upper gable roof, and then there's also another
gable roof that you can see over here on the second floor is now over here. Okay, so two more views. The long, low, one-story addition over here with the blue door on the back. And then over here is another shot from the neighboring property of that same area here. The addition is actually going behind the bush here on the left. So then this was a roof shot that was, I think, relevant before and maybe not so much now, except that the addition is actually being added on to the back of this facade here. This roof is being, the ridge line is being moved over to about where this hand is here, the pointer, and then will slope down from there across the addition.
It's not flush with any of that wall mat right there. That's the part where I'm having some structural issues. When that water comes off, it stops.
Right.
Back.
So let's see. Let's hope the new drawings are in here. Are these the new drawings? I know they look too light. Okay, I may have to go to
Do you want
analog.
Matt, do you want my laptop? They're in my laptop.
Well, I might be able to just do it from the analog. Oops. Nope, I think I only have the old ones. Analog. Okay. Yes. L and L.
Here you go.
It's kind of half. I don't know what they cut out. Cut most of them.
There we go. Okay. So, so here we have, that's the plot plan again. Telephoto in. You can see now we're talking 5.12 feet right there. Okay, and there's the jog in, but it's still flush on the back. Hello. So now this is the new elevation that he's prepared. You can see this is now the jog in from the corner, and as opposed to the last time we saw it, he's moved the door to the left side instead of the right side of the screen porch. And unfortunately, his drawing kind of cut off the bottom, but he does those steps that he had out the back are now over here, of course. And then this door and the windows stay the same. Because the roof moves over slightly this way, it's a little bit different, but still the peak, which now is here, is being moved to here in order to provide the additional run at the same slope across the entire new addition. So, and everything from this line up to the roof and this little bit of wall here and over here, all that is now new because this is where the old roof was, or is now, the existing roof is now. So the other change, and correct me if I'm wrong, but now he's eliminated his proposal to extend the roof up on the existing addition up to the second floor up here, and just leave that as it is now. And maybe that's just take care of that at some later date. This is an elevation of the side of the screen porch.
So the existing addition ends here, and everything to the left here is new. And that's the new roof slope up here. Let's see. And then that is just the elevation of that, the rear of the screen porch, and there are the steps. And there's the pet door there too. Inside the porch, so normally we wouldn't be concerned about an inside space, except that porches are, I guess, considered to be exterior spaces. And since this is all screened in, it may still qualify as an exterior space. So, and these will be exterior doors to the room along that big, long, one-story addition. And then this just shows the framing and such. And he's proposed to remove the metal siding from this side of the addition and replace it with 1x6 pine tumbling groove. And then on this side, this is then the end of the the other addition that has the big black windows here. He's replacing them with also some double French doors on this end, and also removing the siding there and putting on the 1x6 pine tumbling groove. So, I guess this is just a blow up of that end of the.
I was trying to show you how I want to attach that screen, but you said I
yeah.
can't attach it to the outside of the ballast.
No, right. So I think we require that to be on the inside of the balusters, so that the presence of the balusters and railing remains prominent. So.
Can I do the top half on the outside and the balusters on the inside? Is that doable? For the screen?
Oh, I see.
I'd like to have
That's a question for them. So.
Would you?
We'll get to that in a minute. So then this is a detail of the actual railing. So this is the top of the handrail here, and then this is the bottom of the rail, and you can see the balusters are centered inside in the rail. So when we're talking about screening, we have to consider the shapes and spaces that are there. And then this is mostly just framing. Whoops, and it's upside down. Mostly just framing and details. The floor structure will be attached to the house because, as we discussed with, I think, another project, these porches are not decks. So, especially since they're covered and the roof is attached, the roof over the porch is attached to the existing house. The floor then can also be. So. And it makes sense to be connected. So, all right. I think that takes care of all of those. And we do have the zoning and inspections form here. Whereby the zoning official said proposed improvements meet city standards provided they are in compliance with a 5-foot side yard setback. So remember earlier the other application was a 3-foot setback. That's for accessory structures. This is not accessory. This is an actual extension of the building. It's an addition, so it's a building. It's part of the building, so it's a 5-foot setback for that. All right. Otherwise, we're ready with our recommendations, and then the applicant has some items to, I guess, clarify.
Okay, do we have anyone who has conflict of interest or thinks the application is incomplete? Seeing none. Sir, is there something else you would like to let us know?
I was going to ask about the screening. I would like to have the top rail of my railing there available so I can set the T on there. So that's kind of why I didn't want to put the screen on the inside. Could I put the screen on the outside to the top rail and then switch to the inside? If not, that's fine, but that would be preferable to me. And that would leave the balusters open, but still give me that top rail to use.
Are you saying is the screen just above the railing?
Well, I was going to do the screen on the outside, just to the top of the rail, and go to the inside, because I have to leave those open. And I'm going to case all that out in one by trim, so you won't see.
If you want, maybe it would help to draw or show with a pencil on here. You can go ahead and.
Do I even have to, do I even have to have them, since I'm not even above 30 inches? I would screen from here on the that'd be on the outside, and then I'd switch to the inside and screen.
And just
inside portion.
and
If you go ahead and
construct,
use your section here to show how that detail works out, because if let's say this left side is the outside, okay?
Yeah, so the screen would have to come, and it would, on the
Be
outside,
stapled on there.
yeah, and I'd have I would put some piece of trim there, tie that in, and then I'd do the screen here, trim that out, make a nice.
sort of constructing little frames, essentially.
That way I leave that baluster open to the outside.
Okay.
Meet that requirement.
That makes sense.
Now this trim here is half the dimension of the thickness of the rail, though.
Yeah, I might have to work that. That should be 3/4 inch thick.
So here's what I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So you could perhaps do your trim piece like that.
yeah, I could just run that straight out, not bevel that
Right,
edge.
not bevel that.
This is sort of like the conversation in the aisle.
So I'd run your screen in the single plane on the inside, and then put the additional piece on the inside where you put your teeth in.
Gotcha. So screen all the way top to bottom.
And I think your life will be a lot easier,
Oh, yeah.
installation wise.
Yeah, okay.
So essentially just change the
Add yourself a little.
the inside of that top rail on your baluster would be in two pieces, right?
Gotcha.
That work for you?
Yeah, work.
This is the gentleman to whom I was referring.
I figured that's who he was, because he wasn't here last 2 weeks ago.
I'm not sure I like being notorious.
Most screen
I
porches
tried to
don't
make it
have the
easy for you.
baluster.
You did
What
a
is
good
you
job.
thinking, are just for style or support or
I was
what?
just trying to keep because I got those on the front porch, so I thought it would keep the house
idea.
looking more unified.
Yeah.
I don't need them because I'm not 30 inches above, so I kind of thought about ditching them.
Oh, you don't want to ditch them.
You don't want to, and the dog goes sailing.
Well, yeah, 'cause
It
then I
gives
get
you good character.
kids and kids running through
Well,
there.
it gives you good character too.
That's right, yes, I think I'll leave them, I'll make that change, that's no problem.
One of the other things to note is the spacing of the balusters.
3.5 inches.
Okay, because the drawing has it quite a bit different.
Oh, yeah, I didn't draw that part scale. I'm not,
Okay.
that's good, that's good.
And does that then match your front?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm keeping all paints, all trim the same as keep it consistent throughout.
What material are you going to be using for your French doors?
I was looking at the, I think it was a solid vinyl door. I don't know if that's authorized, but I'm up to suggestions on those.
Do you have pictures of those up
I
there?
did on that.
Yeah, on his new one.
New pattern.
So they look like full glass doors, right?
They were,
Pass that to
yeah.
Lisa.
They're based on the drawing.
Yeah, I think it has some panels in there.
She wanted to see the pictures.
And
Oh, Ruth, there you go.
for the record, can you run down your materials that you're using?
Frame is all going to be treated 2x2 non-dimensional
Here's the
lumber.
door.
Precast asphalt shingles for the roofing. I'm going to reclaim all the metal siding and I take off the two existing structures. The infill where I remove the door. So the new interior, exterior walls in the porch will be pine, tongue and groove, painted to match the exterior. I'm going to leave those posts exposed, and I'm going to trim those out and make them look like columns probably. And then I got 4x6 posts with a 1x trim on it to hide the screen, so to beef it up a little bit. All that's painted white, wood lattice skirting,
Okay.
and I think that's about it.
The roof configuration that you have now, does that eliminate the trough that you had?
You know, I checked that trough and it's structurally sound. The place I'm having the problem is when it comes off of that roof, it goes down that shower roof and then it turns a 90, and that's why I got my structural damage. But with this, when I changed the setback, my roof line dead ends right on that corner, so I'll rebuild that corner
Yeah.
and take that off, and then I think I'll be okay
Then you
with
got
that.
a straight shot.
Yes, sir. That's what I was thinking. And that's what saved me a lot of money. And I didn't like the way that roof line changed the back of the house either.
Yeah.
It didn't look right.
And Trip, most balusters, the top rail is horizontal, not vertical. How would you attach a screen to that?
It'd have to be it'd be to the inside face.
So it would be even,
Well, in one plane from top to bottom.
yeah.
And then what I'll call the expansion for the iced tea would go on afterwards
Yeah.
on the inside. And that way it wouldn't be visually apparent.
You could just
Does that kind of answer your
put you
question?
could use like a
So,
1x4 or 2x4 and make yourself a little shelf that's just
Yeah.
big enough for the sky,
Okay.
just, or tea glass or whatever it is.
All right.
And if you think about it, when you sit on the porch, you do use that little shelf all of the time.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What, the fiberglass asphalt shingles, I presume they're on other parts of the house as well?
The roof, the existing roof that I'm extending, that
Okay.
is what's on there currently.
And so the only thing that got me a little sidetracked, you said something about reusing some metal siding.
I'm hoping to. I know that's difficult, but I have been successful in the past.
All right,
Is the standing seam?
The only time I need, the
No,
only
it's just
place
to
I need
not
to try
have
to
to reside the
reuse
full
it
entire
is when I take that double window around the back and put in that door.
so it's currently wrapped in metal.
It's
The
currently-
entire house.
So you're
is-
matching what's there.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
The entire house is currently metal siding.
I had not picked up on that.
Yeah,
so,
no,
okay.
that's all right.
I want to be a little change as
Okay.
possible.
You can
I
see
got-
that here,
Yeah,
probably
I-
mostly on the corner edge here.
Yeah, when you zoom in, I can
Yeah, yeah,
see. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm tracking now.
yeah.
Good.
And is there, so he's going to be removing that metal siding from the location of his porch on the long side
Yeah.
and then also the short side of the existing house. And that's where he's going to get the metal to actually finish out the little bits around the back, along above the screen door
In the screen.
and the bottom, below where the windows will go in at the blue door. So a little bit of patching, basically. So, did I hear what was the discussion or the decision about the vinyl doors?
Oh, you got sidetracked.
Here's pictures of them right there.
Yeah, so this is a contributing structure. And so we've got a guideline.
So you guys did get the updated pictures, right?
It's in my lap.
Yeah, in your
Yeah, that's right.
packets? Okay, sorry about
I'm gonna
that
go to sleep, sorry.
here.
So guideline 3.2.1 is select materials that are consistent with the structure. We'll give you a flyer on the metal siding because it's already there,
Gotcha.
but that's probably needs to be a
Wood door?
full glass door as opposed to a vinyl one. Oh, yeah. Is it-
I'm good with that.
And you didn't show any divisions in the glass, so I assume it's just one piece of glass, no muttons or mullions.
I plan on getting this, I think it was 8 panel, if I can find one. That's why.
All right.
Do you prefer the panel?
I don't have a preference,
Okay.
but you'll need to kind of declare one for this evening. I'm going to suggest we go with the full glass for
Full
tonight.
glass wooden door it is.
And when you find the 8 panel, you'll want to talk to Matt about simulated divided lights.
Okay.
And And if we've got some guidelines that pertain to that, and if that all works out between you and Matt, we can amend your certificate of appropriateness like we did for the prior applicant. Any windows going in? You're taking some out, but none.
No, new windows, just recovering
Okay.
the existing.
The only other one is then the screen door is also proposed to be a vinyl screen door.
And so that needs to be wood as well.
That needs to be wood, yes.
All right. So, Madam Chair did a fine job. I appreciate your balustrade details. That answered all my questions. I wasn't there to ask during design review.
May I say you're a brave man?
If you see a lot of cars driving by,
Oh, yeah.
I want to see this house.
Come on by anytime. I'm always out before you. So.
Okay, so any other questions of the applicant at this point? He's here. Okay, I don't think I see any notified proponents or opponents in the audience. We only have one person left in the audience. I don't think we have anybody who has any relevant evidence and has standing. I don't see anybody raising their hand for that. So if you would like to give us the staff findings, we'll just move on to that.
Certainly, this is an application by Brian and Andrea Woodall at 413 George Street. It's also known as the Stroud House. This is a contributing resource, and the National Register inventory description, I don't guess it didn't indicate a construction date, or I missed that. But it's 2 stories, 3 bays wide, 2 bays deep, 6/6 sash, front door in the right bay, hipped roof porch, tapered posts on brick piers, aluminum siding, metal clad gable front roof, and interior chimney. So it was already aluminum siding back in 2003. Sandbeck had no description of it. So this project is 1223 National Avenue to include a new screen porch and other modifications in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For design principles, it's 3.1.1, 2, 4, and 5. For modifications, it's 3.2.1, 2, 3, and 5. For additions, it's 3.3.1, 2, and 3. For foundations, it's 4.1.3 and 4. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, it's 4.2.1 and 4. For guidelines for windows, doors, and openings, it's 4.3.1, 2, and 3. For guidelines for entrances, it's 4.4.4 and 5. For roofs, it's 4.5.1. For decks and patios, 4.6.2 and 4. For guidelines for masonry, it's 5.1.1 and 2. For wood, it's 5.2.1 and 2. For paint, it's 5.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops, wrong button. Again. So the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. The proposed additions and modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historically significant design components or architectural features. 3, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a new screen porch and other modifications in the secondary and tertiary AVCs.
Thank you. I don't see anyone in the audience from any state, city, or government body, so there don't be any comments there. Sir, do you have any final comments at this time?
No, ma'am.
Commission members, do you have any questions, comments at this time? Seeing none, could I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move we find the application of appropriateness for 413 George Street to be not incongruous New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines: 3.1.1, 3.1.2, 3.1.4, 3.1.5, 3.2.1, 3.2.2, 3.2.3, 3.2.5, 3.3.1, 3.3.2, 3.3.3, 4.1.3, 4.1.4, 4.2.1, 4.2.4, 4.3.1, 4.3.2, 4.3.3, excuse me, 4.4.4, 4.4.5, 4.5.1, 4.6.2, 4.6.4, 4.1, 5.1.1, 5.1.2, 5.2.1, 5.2.2, 5.4.1, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.4.4. Findings of fact. 1. The project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. 2. The proposed additions and modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove historically significant design components or architectural features. 3. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. 4. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Second.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, everybody understands what we're voting on?
Yes.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Do I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Hearing none, we can issue you a COA. And thank you very much for your cooperation.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You need your drawings?
Take them. This is quite a project.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next items are these three houses on East Front Street up in River Station. So just as a kind of preamble to looking at these three houses, in design review, we discussed that these houses are in a development pattern that we have not had here in New Bern before. And having looked at one of these houses already, we realized as a commission that we really don't have a development pattern outlined in our guidelines that fit this development pattern that's in a very tight area where the lots are very long, they're very close to each, they're very close to each other. They have alleys behind these lots, which we don't have much here in the city. So after we talked about this in design review and looked at one of these houses, the Guidelines Update Committee got together to deal with this problem, which we have discussed, in the fact that we don't have guidelines that really support this because we haven't had this before. So the Guidelines Update Committee did meet last week, and we had for discussion for the commission a example and some verbiage to describe this type of developmental pattern, and this is something that we are going to discuss, and how this pattern is very different than anything else that we have in New Bern. So in the process of doing that, for the commission will discuss this, agree on how this needs to be described in our guidelines, because we do not have any presently, and then it will have to go through the approval process. So once we approve this, Matt, it will need to go to planning and zoning?
That's correct.
Planning and zoning, and once they do whatever they're going to do, then it would need to go to the Board of Aldermen.
That's correct.
Okay? So I say all of this to you to just alert you to the fact that if you want to present these houses tonight, you certainly can. However, presently, we don't have the guidelines approved by which to have a discussion with you much about these houses and what the guidelines will look like that we will need to use to determine any outcomes from these houses. So if you want to present your information to us tonight, you certainly can, with the understanding that there probably won't be a whole lot of discussion because we don't have any guidelines for this at this point in time that we can use.
So if I understand you correctly, you all have met and have decided to basically rewrite guidelines to include this development pattern in the guidelines.
Well, we have met to propose such a thing. It is not up to us to approve those in the end. That's why I said it has to go through the stages. It's up to the Board of Aldermen in the end to approve what we will discuss. Now, they may come back and say, you need to change this, you need to change that, we don't approve this. So it is not up to us in the end to decide what this guideline is. And that's why I want you to understand where we are with this. Therefore, it means where you are with this, in that we don't have any approved guidelines at this point in time.
But the intent of the board is that you have met and you have decided to include this development pattern in the guidelines. That's your
No, that is not what I said. What I said was the guidelines update committee met. So there were several of us that met to discuss this. The commission as a whole has yet to go over what has been presented. Matt has written up like what is already in the guidelines. There's under developmental patterns, there's dense fabric, there's tight weave. And so he has developed something that's very similar to that for this type of land use that we have. And so, no, it has not been approved by the commission at all. We still have to meet.
But what I'm saying is that you all have met and have decided, to look at this specific development pattern and are proposing to take this to planning and zoning and the Board of Aldermen to be included in the guidelines.
I think the hang-up is the word "you all."
The committee.
Thank you.
The committee.
Again, I say a subsection of us has. We have not, the commission as a whole has not decided what they're going to do about this. So when you say you all have decided, you all have not decided anything. We are beginning the discussion about what the commission as a whole would like to come up with this. And nothing has been decided at this point to date. And that's why I'm letting you know this, because as a commission, we have no guidelines to deal with this different developmental pattern that exists.
I would just like to say a couple of points. And, we really do appreciate you all taking the time to look at this particular type of development pattern because, as Tripp pointed out last time, it is unique. It's different and, it is something that's not typical to have the alleyway. The points I'd like to say is that you've already approved 2 houses in the River Station development, and one of which has an attached garage. That happened last month. And then prior to that, the house that's existing there has, an internally attached garage. There are many houses, newer houses within the historic district, specifically along Edgerton, where every single house along Edgerton, which is the street back from East Front Street on the river, has an attached garage. You also approve the townhouses on Broad Street, which all have attached garages. I mean, so, and we have guidelines, specifically 2.1.1, which talk about the development pattern and spacing, and we have guidelines for planning and zoning on setbacks, and planning and zoning approve the site plan that is in place. And so from our perspective is you all are very familiar with this issue, have approved many projects in the past that conform, that these houses are, conform to. We have setback guidelines that the city requires us to use, which we are using. And so to me, this, and we also have front setbacks, which we can use as well. So to me, that within these guidelines, I believe that you have the ability to look at what we are proposing and respond. And during design review, there were all positive responses. And so, we certainly want to proceed because the owner, as you all know, has been held up on this project numerous times, starting with the marina and waiting for that to be approved. That was a 4-year process with the city. And now here we are, he's ready to start building, literally ready to start pulling permits. And we would really appreciate it if this is something that you all would look at tonight. That being said, if you're going to say you're going to look at it and just deny it, that's I'm not sure what guideline you would be basing that on, but at the same time, we're here to work with you, and we understand, but at the same time, putting a 2-month hold on the owner who's been trying to get this project going, especially with lumber prices going up, is a hardship.
Well, it's actually, thank you for your comments. Well, it's actually the fact, as you just talked about, that one of these houses has been more recently approved. This commission, that's as it sits today, did not approve the house that's been sitting down in River Station for many years.
That was approved by the HPC.
Not this commission right here, not these people here.
Not these people.
No,
but,
and that's what I said. These people, this present commission, as it consists, did not approve that house.
But they did approve the Lot 9 one last month.
And I'm coming to that. And in actual fact, approving that, it was the corner lot when we looked at that.
Yeah.
It was doing that we realized that we really don't have the necessary guidelines that we believe that we would need in order to look at the rest of the houses that would be in that configuration. And so that's why I'm letting you know that there are going to be some updates to the guidelines that would assist you in getting those houses approved in a timely manner. But that timely manner is not right at this point in time. So again, I say this to you about whether or not you want to do your presentation tonight. If you want to, we will listen to it. But again, we don't have the guidelines that we feel that we need to have in order to do justice to that area that is very different than any other area in Newbern.
What guidelines are you proposing? What guidelines do you feel are lacking to make that decision?
Well, first of all, we don't have a developmental pattern description that describes that up there. That would be the first one. As I just told you previously, we don't have a developmental pattern.
So not a specific guideline, but just wording, general wording within the guidelines.
Well, anything in our guidelines is part of our guidelines. Anything that we have written in any of those pages is part of our guidelines. So part of what we're doing is, as I said earlier, is looking at a new description for a new developmental pattern. And in that description, we'll be describing what the area can look like, just like we have in some of these other ones about, what the buildings, how close they can be, what you can do to them in the front, what the back of it can be, because part of this issue, as you know, as we discussed with you, has to do with the garages. Because as our guidelines say now, that they should not be attached garages. And so this is not new information to you. You remember we did discuss this with you last time, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. But, you know,
Okay.
in those discussions and in design review, the idea of the attached garage and what's the images shown in the guidelines, you know, to me are the guiding issue. And having the garage attach on the front of the house where it says no, you know, to me that's an indication that these guidelines, you have information in here that does talk about garages being attached to houses, and you have already approved some. So we absolutely would love to for you all to hear, you know, one of the houses tonight. The owner absolutely wants to move forward. He wants to pull permits in 2 weeks.
Well, I understand that, but that's not something that we can probably do. If you want us to hear the house, if you do your project and bring it before us, and you want us to make a decision on it, then you'll have to be aware of the fact that if we have no guidelines, which is what we want time to have to develop, if we have no guidelines, then some of your options are going to be very limited to the outcome. And that's why I'm having this discussion with you tonight on behalf of the commission, because we want to do this and to provide this as an opportunity for a different type of development that's here in New Bern, because there's nothing else in New Bern that looks like that.
So are you really saying that if we go forward tonight, you're going to say that we cannot have an attached garage?
We don't have any guidelines, but what I keep on saying, we don't have the guidelines that the commission thinks that we need in order to hear your application.
But your point is, we've already heard several of them and we've approved them.
Correct.
So what's the holdup?
Right.
Yeah. I guess I asked the same question. We've already.
Are there other folks on the board who have the same question? I mean, is that okay to ask? Or, I mean, we certainly don't want the project to be denied because we think that, you know, these are a beautiful addition to New Bern. But we also want to be respectful of the HPC, and we understand your position. You know, we're just trying to ask you to understand our position that you have already approved houses in this development in a similar fashion to what we're proposing tonight. So why make us wait if your intent is to put in the guidelines something that would be beneficial to us in the long run, I guess.
I have a question, which is, have you made any changes from any of your designs from what we saw in design review?
The corner lot is slightly changed, but not dramatically. You would barely notice what they are. The other two, they all have very slight modifications, but they're not dramatic changes in any way. There's still double stack porches. All the components are still the same.
And in your mind, what you're going to present is close enough to the ones that you previously presented, and we approved them using the guidelines that we had.
Right.
So why not go ahead?
And you have guidelines for development patterns that say maintain the established development pattern for placement of infill construction. Relative to a structure, to the property boundaries, should be similar to those up the street, which we have examples of that. So to me, it's not that the guidelines don't talk about what we're presenting. That clearly says to maintain the pattern. And to me, the pattern is there are two houses approved by this board and one house approved by a previous board that, to me, is the development pattern.
I would like to go through and see what you have going on.
And again, we very much want to work with the board. I very much want my owner to be able to move forward, and I absolutely do not want to get a project denied tonight. So, I mean, I would love to start with Lot 9 and talk it through and see if from what we see in these guidelines, if that we could come to an understanding on that. And if not, then we're happy to wait.
Does anybody else from the Guidelines Update Committee, when we met last week, have anything else to say about what we discussed at that meeting that you want to say at this point in time?
Well, I don't think that what we talked about is going to wildly affect what she's going to present. So I'd like to hear, what you're going to present. And I think we've got guidelines which would potentially allow that to occur.
The one thing that concerns me, because, and you've heard me say this on other matters, doing something in New Bern is not like doing it in Mumbai. It's a tiny little town, and if this thing was platted out and approved by the planning department, we're a subset of the planning department. And, in the Venn diagram, we're a little circle somewhere in the middle. And so it bothers me enormously if I feel like we've got a situation in our city where one part of the city is working at cross purposes with another part of the city, because we're a tiny little city. We don't have some massive bureaucracy where there's, jockeying and people all hating on each other. And that really bothers me, because her proposals aren't occurring in a vacuum. They're occurring on lot lines that have gone through the planning process and been approved by the planning process. And so she's not spinning lots out of air. She's following what the city of New Bern dictated in the past.
That's absolutely true. The owner worked with the city and planning and zoning. It had to approve that layout.
Well, that is true. It was approved. However, when it was approved, and they developed the alleys when that happened, the guidelines that existed in the historic district, they didn't come and, to my understanding, they didn't come and discuss that with how was that all going to work and how was that going to fit into the present guidelines.
But I don't know that that's germane.
It isn't germane that when you build something within the historic district that it fits within the
Well, I
guidelines?
mean, it's just that at this point in time, we're not going to make them, go out there with a bunch of excavators and replot out their development based on a change in attitude.
Right, you're right, and that's why when we had the Guidelines Update Committee, part of what we talked about in that committee, because this does exist, and they didn't come to us and ask us about, so how's a house being built on one of those lots going to fit into our guidelines? That's why we talked about developing a new developmental pattern that would take what somebody else did, okay, and us try to work with that in terms of also considering the fact that it is within the historic district. And how can we, as a commission, work with something that somebody has given to us when they didn't ask us about it to begin with? Am I making clear what I'm saying there?
You are, but
But this was laid out with the city planner.
Right, so the problem is.
Oh, I understand that, but the
Who
city
was
planner didn't come.
the equivalent of Matt helped approve, lay this out.
I understand that, but those lots, depending, and we talked about this before, depending on, not depending, but they're long, narrow lots, which avails itself to only a certain amount of types of buildings that you can build on it, right? And some of that, for instance, doesn't apply to, and we've had this discussion before, the issue about attached garages. And that has been in the guidelines for a very long time. So, I mean, I'm just using that as an example. And that is why when the Guidelines Update Committee met, that we thought a way to include this, because this section, while you've given examples of other houses that have been built, there is no section in New Bern that looks like that. There is no section in New Bern that the intent is to have houses that are that close together on those long lots with alleyways behind them, and those lots happen to sit on the water, so you've got green grass and water in front of it. There's not a section in New Bern that looks like that. So we, in a sense, are trying to help you out in terms of what you all are trying to do with the lot, in a sense, that you've been given.
Right. You know, and the attached garage is not a numbered item, you know, within the guidelines. And, you know, since many other projects with attached garages have been approved in the past, you know, I don't know if the board had, you know, why single us out in this specific case when all, you know, they have been approved in the past with no, you know, I understand attaching a garage to the front of a historic house is absolutely inappropriate. You know, to me that this is a different issue, and I understand that. I would like to go through Lot 9 and see if, you know, that's something that you feel you don't have guidelines to approve. And really understand what, you know, what guidelines, when you look at that house, you think are lacking, given the guidelines that on development pattern, materials, foundation, spacing, setbacks.
I feel like we've already agreed to entertain some different looks and constructions, and we've approved some. And we're kind of holding this up to say, well, we got to develop some guidelines before we do any more. And I don't think that's an appropriate position for us to take. We ought to continue to entertain.
Right, and I think what you all approved previously, you were able to look at the guidelines and see where it was appropriate. And I don't think that has changed at all.
Yeah.
One reason we hesitate, Sarah, is because we have not actually had an opportunity to put these ideas before the board. And as a matter of fact, one of our ideas actually for this new developmental pattern with the existence of an alley, now it hasn't been approved, this has not been approved, no driveways extend from the front street above ground, and underground utilities can provide, so forth and so on. Contrary to the front facades and yards, the rear facade will likely have garage doors, driveways, rooftop decks, and maybe porches, and often small or no rear yards. So these are things that we want to bounce off the committee. And as a matter of fact, one of the suggestions made was that we seek your input and seek
Great.
other architects' input for it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to come up with.
Okay. Gosh, you know, it put me in a tight spot.
Well, it's put all of us in a tight spot.
Yeah,
in
right.
terms of how to move forward. Would you like, you were at the meeting, would you like to add anything to the?
I don't think so. I mean, if we as a group decide we want to hear these things, we'll hear them. As far as I'm concerned, if we as a group decide we're going to continue it, I'm okay with that.
And
I can't, in terms of what we talked about in our committee meeting, I don't think there's anything top secret about it, but I'm a little annoyed that we're talking about it because here we are and it's not ready to talk about. And so, but, can't put that genie back in the bottle. So, what are we going to do? We're going to hear these things or are we going to continue?
I, for one, would like to hear them.
I for two.
Well, it's a vote. I mean, you would have to vote on whether to continue it. Well, I don't know what that means, though. How does that work?
Is there a potential outcome in hearing this that would inhibit?
Yes,
Or
there's a possible negative outcome, which is that you all could deny it, which means that we could not bring this project back for a year.
Yeah.
And we absolutely don't want that to happen. The owner has asked me to, very nicely ask if you all will hear them tonight because they very much want to start building.
So it seems reasonable that you could, one option is just to say, look, we are in the process of discussing the development pattern for this, and we don't feel comfortable with moving it forward at this point, and just vote for continuance to next month or probably the following month. And then another option is that you can listen to the application, decide to listen to the application, and then at the end of the presentation, usually there's a motion that's made, but there might not be a motion, at which point maybe the chair would ask for the application to be either tabled or continued. I don't know what the technical term is for that at that point. To the next meeting, and then that would be another option. And of course, the third one is that no, it absolutely does not meet the guidelines at this point, and that would be a denial, and you'd have to state the reasons why. But those seem to be the three basic options for proceeding at this point, I think. Maybe someone else sees a fourth one?
I have one other question, which is one of these houses has already received a COA, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one lot has received a COA for one of the designs that is now being proposed for a different lot.
But the house itself, in principle,
The house was approved for a different lot than it's now being proposed for
okay, but
tonight.
Yes.
But
yeah.
they could proceed tomorrow with
that
that design for
on
that one lot, yes.
Right, okay, and I was away for a family emergency, but I just want to make sure it's my understanding that a house in this development has been issued a COA.
Two have, actually.
Okay.
Well, this commission has not done two.
Well,
Yes.
the second one was a carport.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But
Two houses in this development you have approved.
Yes.
this commission, as it sits now, did not approve the one that's been there for many years.
No.
That's correct.
Okay, so this commission has only approved one, and
No,
it was
well,
in the
two. So at the last meeting, this commission approved two designs for two lots in this subdivision. The first one was actually not on East Front Street.
Right.
It's on Queen Street and has a carport.
As a carport.
So that's a somewhat different scenario than the second one that was approved, which was on East Front Street.
Has an East Front Street address.
Correct.
Right, whereas the other one
And
has
then
a
the
Queen
third
Street.
one is the one you're referring to, was approved back in 2008 or something.
Right.
And I just want to say, there's no one here to, to me, that I've been
However,
presenting
I
this
will tell
board
you that
for
it is
years,
It is
and
being recorded.
It's being recorded, yes, but, you know, there have been many years where many people have gotten up and, you know, said, you know, tried to get projects not approved, and that is not the case tonight. There's no one in the audience. I just wanted to point that out, you know, so it's an internal issue.
There are no strenuous public objections.
Right.
Okay.
What do we need to go ahead? A motion? Is that what it takes?
Well, Matt gave us 3 options.
Do you want to just see the first one?
I do.
Which of the motions that you suggested, Matt, are least harmful? And that's actually meant that way, is the least harmful to our presenting our thing to the committee?
I don't know.
I think the change committee, and I sense the board as a whole, is of a mind to develop a guideline which would allow all that you're going to do. And we've already approved some of them. So I don't see it makes a lot of sense to stop and wait a couple of months till we finish that and hold you guys up. That's my personal opinion.
That's my opinion as well. But I understand that there's more of you on the board.
Yeah.
So if Sarah proceeds and presents, and for whatever reason we get to the bottom line and we don't think we should approve that tonight, we can just do nothing.
Yeah.
No motion and continue it.
Yeah. The problem is if we get a motion and it gets defeated, then she gets tough.
Right, yeah.
But I'm with you. I think we hear it and let's see if there's a consensus that it's a good thing.
Well,
Which we
and
should,
that,
because
and that is,
we get there eventually.
and that is somewhat what I'm trying to do to help you to avoid that. Because if it gets approved, then you do have to wait a year?
Mm-hmm.
You mean denied?
Sorry, denied, yes.
But it can be continued.
Yes, I believe that's one of the choices, would be to continue, or Matt, as you said, we can just, nobody would make a motion on it, and it would just sit there.
I think we can get a sense of where we are, and if it's going to go down, we shouldn't make a motion. But if we get a sense that it's going to go ahead, I'll be glad to make the motion.
I can see that the trip very much wants us to just wait. I get that very, very much. And, you know, having sat on that board, it's a tricky spot. You know, I really do believe that, you know, that you do have the guidelines to look at it and have already started talking about that. I know you want to put more thought into it and to really, you know, make it right. And, you know, this is me working for a client who is, you know, really putting some money into New Bern. And, you know, I believe that, you know, what you're looking at is not, I just can't foresee what changes you would have from what we're proposing. But if you want to take a look at the first one and we can just have that discussion, maybe that would help you in your committee meeting.
My question is, do we have the right, basically, to determine what you present according to the recommendations that we will be making to this board when they have not heard the recommendations?
Well, we all have a draft memo that went out as an email. So each and every one of us should have read that.
And it's in keeping with our thinking, and we've approved already some projects
Right.
that they're,
I mean, but we've all read the verbiage that was circulated.
And what's being presented in the primary area of visual concern, you have all the tools to evaluate every bit of that. And also, development pattern. You have guidelines to point to say, that this is a development pattern and,
Well, I hear you saying you think we do, but we've also shared and talked about that we don't think we do, and think that there's a need for a new developmental pattern that deals with that particular type of development and how those lots are set out and that type of thing. So I hear you say you think we do, but that's not necessarily how it all is.
And Sarah, this is not personal. We mean to have this new development pattern adopted.
I hear you, and we appreciate that.
We are sincere about
Yes.
that.
No, that's very much appreciated. It is. It really
But
is.
we can't, yeah.
Matt, how long did it take for our minor works updates to go through the Board of Aldermen?
The minor works update doesn't go through the alderman.
But we updated the guidelines and the Board of Aldermen approved that pretty recently.
You mean to remove it from the book the last time that went through? I don't.
That was that was pretty recently.
I can't be very accurate on the number of weeks, 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. So.
Well, when does the Board of Adjustment next meet?
Actually,
If we have to go to them
guidelines were
first.
adopted by us on June 17th,
Well,
and
so
the
the-
Board of Aldermen on July 14th. So
Right, it was pretty quick.
So let me ask, since you keep talking about time, so if we as a commission, as I said, because we knew this was an upcoming issue, we met last week. The committee met to take on what to do about this update to the guidelines. So if the day is Wednesday, so let's just say that, looking at the time, it's now almost 7:30 tonight. But if we as a commission and those that wanted to be involved, let's say, I'm just putting this forward, met on Monday, Matt. So if we met on Monday and we had something written up that we would approve to go to, the next person it needs to go to is planning and zoning, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we met next week and we got our stuff together. And when could it go to planning and zoning? I mean, do they have a meeting or we can just present it to them?
Well, so first of all, let's just even back up to tonight. Later on tonight, you will be discussing that draft.
Okay.
You can decide tonight if that draft is sufficient.
Okay.
Or you could decide that it needs considerable reworking to a certain extent, and you will take action on it next month. Either way. So let's just go with the...
So we could take action on it tonight?
Correct.
You could.
We
yes.
could. So if let's back it up tonight.
Wait, there is one potential problem. It was not in the agenda when we posted the agenda, so you actually probably can't take action on it tonight. You could, however, take your draft and pass that on to the planning and zoning and ask them to make a recommendation if they would, based on the draft, but it's not an approved draft.
Okay.
So they may not want to act on a draft that's not approved.
Could the draft
That
be-
would then put the next possible time that it would go to planning and zoning would be their November 2nd or 3rd meeting, whatever that first Tuesday is in November. And then after that, then it is posted to the agenda for the aldermen to call a public hearing, which is the second Tuesday in November.
That's the 9th.
However,
Plus on the
the agenda, I think, is posted before the planning and zoning meeting. So that recommendation ends up working onto the agenda for the 4th Tuesday in November, I believe. Did I just go to November? Yes.
You really do meet November?
And not
Can I ask you, don't meet October?
So here's what I'm going to suggest.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest we have a special meeting to deal with these 3 or 4 applications, whatever we're talking about tonight. That there's obviously a group who feels that we need to be better prepared to roll this thing out. You see the disarray that's happening because we've not shared it with our own colleagues. There's also a group who sees, that we've got some guidelines and we could probably move forward. And I think there's validity to both camps. That's why I say whatever it is we decide. But why don't we try to call a special meeting in about 2 weeks where we're prepared to act on whatever guidelines that we're preparing through the committee. Which will mean we'll also have to get together ahead of time as a group to discuss those things. And so
If you
hold
actually-
me loosely to the 2 weeks thing, because we've got to give notice of our meeting and all those kinds of things.
So if I remember correctly, the notice for a special meeting, I think, is 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
So you could essentially have it next Wednesday, for example. And the hard deadline for the planning and zoning is the following day. So it would be possible to actually get it on the October agenda for planning and zoning. So that's one potential, and that would then kick things forward so that it would then end up on the alderman's agenda at the end of October. And then if that is then, that would be the call at the end of October, and then they would act on it at the beginning of November. And then you have the following week is when it would be on your agenda for approval of the plans, November, I believe it's 19th.
Let me ask you this. If we said, if you all take the next month and we bring the houses back through, we'll bring them back through design review and to the meeting next month, when you all have had an opportunity to go through your committees and look at whatever and write up documents that you will submit, with good faith effort that your understanding is these are our proposed guidelines, and you would feel comfortable as a board saying that this could be approved because of this these guidelines that we are intending to put in place without all the mechanics of it going through. I hear that not everyone has had a chance to weigh in on it, and I understand that that would be helpful for you all. Would you all as a board be more apt to hear the houses next month if you all had had an opportunity to work through those beforehand? Or are we still in the same situation of, semantics and crossing T's and dotting I's, and that you absolutely have to have those guidelines approved? That's a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but I can only tell you that only 3 of us here sitting who are voting tonight were in the meeting last week that we're keep pounding on, where we're going.
Right.
And the rest of them, my board has no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And-
Madam
and,
Chairman, is that something that you would feel more comfortable
Yes,
going
I
forward
would.
with?
And our experience with the Board of Aldermen has been that, because we've already gone before them to make some changes to our guidelines, And our experience has been is that they have been very cooperative. Have they not been, Matt, when you've gone before them?
Well, sure, I've gone there once, but, you know,
Well-
every situation is different. Nobody can
No, I
guess what the alderman would do. Even the aldermen themselves
Sometimes.
don't do that.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
mean,
I
look-
understand that.
Look at
However,
us tonight. You don't know what a board's going to do until a board does it. And this is way off course right now.
yes,
Um,
and that's what I'm
So,
trying to
so
get-
my other question is, we can certainly for sure, I feel comfortable hearing what you've got next meeting.
Yeah.
As a one board member responding to your question. Getting back to the special meeting thing, which we may still choose to pursue to expedite that. The only thing that Matt not worked in that rough timeline is we'd have to have essentially a design review. Or I would suggest we have the equivalent of a design review before we have our public hearing, where we act on the actual verbiage that we're putting together, the guidelines, just because although we can hash things out at a public hearing, sometimes it's easier to have two bites at the apple, just like we do with our normal applications. You see it one time, you digest what you can, and the second time around you're a little better prepared and you thought of maybe things you didn't ask about the first time around or what have you. But that could nevertheless take place in a relatively short time frame with a special meeting that might allow us to still get the same essential deadlines that you had mentioned earlier for our process that we have to go through, planning board, then to board level.
So I think, yes, I agree with what you said. If you will come back in a month, then we will do our best to move forward, because as my colleague here is saying, there's only few of us that were at that previous meeting, although we've seen, other members have seen, and two of our members are not even here. And so we've seen some of this verbiage. So if you would be willing to do that, I think that would be most helpful to us, and that we could give you, even though the guidelines will not be approved at that time, the commission as a whole would have had a chance to digest this, think about it, come up with the ideas that we have, and we can discuss those with you from a board perspective when you come back to us.
I'm
But
okay with that. I would like to just reflect, though, that even though there were only a few people at that meeting and saw the document, we've all been behaving and making decisions
Understood.
just as if we all had read it and committed it to heart.
Sure.
I want to just ask a question. If we waited and came back next month, are you saying that you would, you would be able to approve it at that time?
You know that we.
I mean, I know you can't.
You know
but
that
I'm saying
can't
that we
say
wouldn't
that.
have the same conversation
Well,
about.
I mean, I think what I could feel better about is that all my colleagues have the same information and have had a chance not only to read it, but to discuss it amongst ourselves in a normal setting. To, sometimes the best ideas on the first draft, you get to looking at it after a while and you come up with some better ideas. And not that we're talking necessarily about ideas here, but again, there's a lot of validity to both arguments. I think a lot of the concern from the commissioners who would like to see some guidelines in place is they don't really understand how little in the guidelines is going to change, which supports your argument and Jim's argument. But also that it's important to have that dialogue and that input in between us to confirm that in fact, everybody kind of agrees that's the best way to move forward.
And what we can assuredly tell you is that when you come back in a month, that if there are things that you need to change, because the commission will have discussed it, as my colleague is saying, and everybody on the commission would have heard the same information, would be at least comfortable that we've had the discussion, that we can say, as we said to you before, we need you to change this. We
Is that-
need you-
is
we
that
need you to
something-
change that for you to move forward.
Is that something that you would be able to do at design review?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we can meet before then, yes.
I think that would be helpful, particularly if there are any concepts that you're introducing in these three others, or if you have in your head,
Yeah.
that we might want to think about as we,
And the three that I've, that are in your packet are all slightly different. And so,
Yeah.
those are all things to, I guess, think about.
And I kind of like Matt's idea of a call meeting and getting, like he said, that it's required to be on an agenda. We could get that, and we would be able to present it to the, of adjustment, the next day, Matt?
Planning and zoning,
Yeah, planning and zoning.
that would be the next day. So 1 week from today, or 1 week from tomorrow is the last day to send
It's,
in there, anything for that.
So if we met next Wednesday, you could get it to them
On Thursday, that's correct.
The only thing that I just want to be clear in my head about is that, if we were, bringing it back next month, would you hear it without everything having gone through the Board of Aldermen? I mean, that's the only question. Or are we in the same position we're in now? And I don't know if that's something that you can answer. I understand that you all would be more comfortable because you would have had discussed it, but, that's...
Well, I think the answer to that is that we can hear it as a board, as my colleague is saying, that everybody on the board has been involved in what's been discussed and the ideas and what we're trying to do actually to be helpful to you, that we could either do as we talked about tonight, at least give you clearer ideas about these projects and what maybe they're going to stay somewhat like they are. Maybe there's going to be a little tweak here, a little tweak there. Or we also have the option, you would also have the option to continue it if we needed to do that. I think that the issue right now is that everybody has not had a chance to review this.
Yeah.
And has not been part of the discussion. So the board as a whole is going to find it difficult to make a decision. But we will be certainly much closer. We will, when we hear it again, everybody on the board will have met, and we will have a discussion about it, and we will be able to give you a decision at that point from what we have discussed and where we think we're going to go.
Okay.
Okay? Is that all right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
sounds good.
All right, well, that's what we'll do. So what do we need to do then in terms of this timeline? If you want to stay and hear this discussion, you can.
Well, I've got 3 items on the agenda. I
Okay.
want to make sure that the mechanics of that get dealt with on how to continue that to the next.
So to move these to the next meeting.
Okay, what would we need to
What
do?
date is that?
The next meeting
3 weeks.
Is October the 7th?
So
in
to
October,
the next regular
Seventh.
meeting in October,
is the 14th.
is it?
The regular meeting or the design review?
You said regular meeting.
Oh.
So
Sorry, I'm saying the 21st,
it can
sorry.
still be on the design review agenda if you want, but technically it has been submitted and is on the agenda for this evening at a regular meeting. To move it to the next regular meeting, whether you go back to design review or not, you would need a continuance. The motion to continue with the date and time.
Each item individually.
Yes,
We would
yes,
need a
please.
continuance, and we would need to say the date, the time, and where it's going to happen.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. So can I have a motion? Let's go with the first one. 801 East Front Street. May I have a motion, please, to continue that into October the 21st at 5:30 p.m. here. We're still going to be here, right?
Yes.
Here in City Hall. well, I can't make the motion,
No, you
somebody's
can't,
gotta
Madam
make,
Chair, but
somebody's
you're
gotta
doing a
make the
good
motion.
job.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved, okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Who did the second?
Either one of us.
George?
and I did it.
Was it
Yeah.
George? Okay.
Could somebody make a motion for 8:15, please?
Madam Chair, I move that we continue the application for 815 East Front Street to October 21st at 5:30 PM here in the courtroom of City Hall.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Who was the second?
Maybe.
Second.
Second.
Oh, thank
Butler?
you.
Say aye. We've had ayes, there's no opposed. Could I have a motion to around 811 East Front Street?
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we continue 811 East Front Street to October 21st, time at 5:30 PM here in City Hall's courthouse.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, continuance passes. Okay?
So what'll happen now is, in the next design review that precedes that meeting, we'll get our heads together about the new.
No, we're going to do that before, we're going to do it before design review, because she wants to come back to design review to hear what we're going to say.
Yeah.
Did I understand you
Yes,
correctly?
absolutely.
So between now and the next design review, which
We're gonna have
will
a
be the
special
7th of October, we will meet.
We'll meet again.
Okay, yes, we're going to meet as a board and go over this so that we're all on the same page.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you very much for your cooperation, we
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And the draft for that text was included in your packet. So you should be able to familiarize yourself with it beforehand.
So can we now talk about the timeline since we're on this topic?
Also, it is possible for me to add that to the HPC Administrator's report as one of the other items and updates, and we could actually, have that as a discussion item later, basically at the end of the agenda tonight. If you want, we can go over it, we can begin to discuss it.
Do we want to do that tonight, committee members, with two of our members not here? Do we want to go ahead and do that? Or do we want to have a special?
We have a quorum,
We have a quorum.
so I recommend we do it.
Okay. All right, so we'll do that at the end. So we will carry on with our agenda, and then we will have that discussion. Does everyone have a copy of what has been written? Does everybody have this development pattern thing?
Yeah, that will come up later then. So we have other items before that?
Yes, we do. But I was just going to say, does everybody have it? If not, I'll give you a copy of mine. Do you need one?
I think I have it. All I've got is this.
Kristen, do you have one?
I don't think so.
There's mine right there. You're welcome.
I know I read it, but I don't think I have
We can share.
I can put it on the.
I wish you
that's
would,
good.
please.
Yes, he can put it up there when we come to it.
Good, good, good.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
Oh,
so,
Lord.
old business, you've got none, old business?
All right, so let's see, where are we?
Do we not
Right,
have,
old business, we have none?
do we not have an application on Queen Street?
No. That, you must have an old agenda.
Okay.
Okay, general public comments, there is no general public left. So, new business, we have proposal by Guidelines Update Committee about changing the minor works list.
Correct.
So I believe we all got a copy of that to look at.
And this is a change that does not require action by the planning and zoning nor the alderman.
Okay.
Because this is just your own,
Bless you.
essentially internal prioritization of major and minor works. And it also does not change the actual printed guidelines book because we eliminated them from there. And this would only be changing the online listing of that aforementioned prioritization.
And so at this point in time, on the website, that is the only place where the minor works list is actually listed in black and white.
That's correct.
Because we changed this already in the guidelines, right?
That's correct.
We've
They're
already
gone.
been through that.
They're gone
So-
in the printed guidelines.
So what do you want us to do with this tonight?
So tonight, we would like to discuss, and you can either take it up again next time for action, or you can even enact it this evening if you would like. So do you want me to just go over it? It's, I guess, 3 pages.
Yes, can you go
Okay.
over it to see
Sure.
if we can get through it tonight and approve it?
Yep. So I've essentially reprinted what is on the website. Starts off with HPC COA for minor works. Does everyone have a copy? I believe I left one on everyone's place setting this evening. So.
I've got an extra one
Okay.
because I brought one. You got?
Yeah, I think everyone has one, but
She's got one.
okay. So from there, the first paragraph stays the same. Anything in regular type stays the same. Then in the second paragraph, items with bold are being added, and then anything with strike through is being subtracted.
Now, that stuff right there has already been approved, right?
I don't know what you mean. No.
Well, did you not take this before the Board of Aldermen before?
That's correct. We did the strike through in the printed guideline,
Right.
but we did not strike through any of this on the online listing.
We haven't done that yet?
That's what we're doing right now.
We're doing that right now, okay?
Yeah,
Keep
okay.
going then,
All
okay?
right.
All right, I thought
So-
we had done it there as well, okay.
No, that was just to eliminate actually outdated list
Okay.
in the book.
I'm now with you,
Yeah,
just keep
yeah.
on, I'm on the
Okay.
same train, you're on there.
So minor work items, we want to add must comply with guidelines and require a certificate of appropriateness, which can be approved by the HPC administrator. Adding now, the HPC administrator may submit a minor work application to the HPC for formal approval depending on the nature of the proposed changes. I believe that sentence may augment or may be removing a sentence that's all the way at the end of the online list that talks about basically the same thing. We'll get to that at the very bottom, or you can page down to the bottom yourself and see what that is currently on the bottom of page 3.
On the, yeah, I see that.
So, and you can see that this sentence is more succinct than the previous one and may also eliminates a little bit of information as well, so that's a potential for debate. Also, just to reiterate, this is, of course, this is a draft that the Updates Committee has agreed upon. So this is their proposal. The following, and then cross out list of exterior work items are considered to be. So the following are classified as minor works. And so we want to, or the committee wants to reorganize all of these and simplify them. And so they're all just deleted per se, and then some of them are replaced back in, but they're reorganized. So at the bottom of page 2, it starts with a bold. You'll see it starts with a kind of a paragraph heading that says minor work permitted in the primary area of visual concern. And then if you skip ahead to the middle of page 3, the bold area, minor work permitted in secondary and tertiary areas of visual concern. So what the committee is proposing is to actually organize the minor work in 2 different categories. One is the work that would be allowed to be considered minor work that's in the primary area of visual concern. So let's start with the top one. Replacement of incongruous material is allowed to be considered minor work when it's in the primary area of visual concern.
Question, man.
Yes.
Replace with what?
Anything that is compliant with the guidelines.
Okay. Can you replace incongruous material as replacement in kind with more incongruous
Well,
material?
okay, replacement in kind is different than a minor work.
Okay.
Yeah. So replacement in kind is always allowed.
I got all this.
Yeah. But it has to be exactly in kind. All right. So same thing with limited lighting installation. If it's in the primary, it can be considered a minor work. Limited landscape planting and removal. If it's in the primary, in the front, it can be considered minor work. Same thing with driveways and walkways in the front, signage in the front, storm windows and storm doors in the front, awnings in the front, handrails in the front, replacement of roofing in the front, in the primary, guttering and downspouts, masonry repointing, and new Bern bears. All of those in the front can be considered minor works.
The only one I have a problem with is driveways and walkways.
Well, driveways mostly always only happen in the front and on the side, and then in the back. But
And they're not all the same.
No, that's
When you
right,
say
yeah.
driveways, what do you mean? Solid? Do you mean?
right, they all have, anything on the list would have to be compliant with the guidelines.
Oh, for driveways.
Right.
Okay.
So this is just classifying the type of work or the kind of work being done. Right?
Yeah.
So everything on the list obviously or always has to comply with all of the appropriate guidelines.
And does that include the position or the placement of the driveway?
Yes, I would suppose. Yeah.
But also, it's still a COA
Right.
that the HPC administrator has to approve.
Right.
So it's not like somebody's just going to go out with a bobcat and cut up the curb.
Right. This is not pre-approving people to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
This is to get they have to get a COA, a minor COA. And so I would have to look at all of them and say, the landscaping timbers is not allowed, so you're going to have to change that.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the house on Metcalf where he wanted to put a parking lot in the front yard, have the driveway come in.
501.
Right, but if you notice, the HPC administrator can always forward something and make it a major work.
Right.
If it's something that
If I would
needs
feel
full
uncomfortable with, doing it, without,
Coming out of the house kind of sticks out.
because there's some maybe secondary or other issues involved.
Okay.
So then, when we get to the next category, the secondary and tertiary areas, notice that the first item there is that anything on the previous list, which were all in the primary, would also be considered, if they're in the secondary or tertiary, they also would be considered minor. So again, if you're going to put a new Bern bear in the secondary or tertiary area, and I don't know why you would do that, but or masonry repointing that's happening in the secondary or tertiary, that would still also be a minor. But what that also means is that the following four items would not be a minor if they're in the primary, because they're only listed here in the secondary and tertiary. So waterfront bulkheads and piers, if they're in the primary area of visual concern, it's a major. I don't know how many times you would have that, street frontage that is actually a waterfront.
I would have a trouble approving that one not coming before the board, because we do have those, and I've seen them be as long as this room and as little as a porch. So
right, but currently they are a minor. So let's see. Waterfront docks, if we back up to the struck through language, waterfront docks are currently considered minors. Let's see, and that's
If
what
it's
you were
something
talking
super
about.
elaborate, would you bring it before the board?
Well, maybe, or if they were proposing things like that are not compliant, such as a gazebo or something on the dock,
Yeah.
which in the guidelines is not allowed, then it would, if they insist, they are free to bring it to the HPC. So.
Yeah.
So then, the next one is accessible ramps. So this is, basically your wheelchair ramps and things. If it's in the front, it's not a minor. But if it's on the side or the back, it would be a minor. All right. Decks, terraces, and patios without railings. Those would be minor if they're in the secondary and tertiary, but not if they're in the primary. I suppose that could occasionally happen. And then utilities are a minor only if they're in the secondary and tertiary areas, not if they're in the primary, just like our first applicant tonight had to come forward as a major. So I wasn't sure about whether or not the committee was proposing to remove this note at the bottom by using that one sentence above or not, so I just left it in there for now. But if maybe someone either from the committee wants to weigh in or anybody here on the commission would like to weigh in that no, we don't need that anymore, or well, that one part of that maybe we should add back up to the other sentence. And
I think that disclaimer has to be on the website so that if anything ever changes, somebody comes waltzing in and you're just like, ugh.
Right,
It's
so at the
right
moment,
there for them to have seen ahead of time, and
So-
it doesn't feel like an end run.
yeah, at the moment, so the draft has it in twice.
That's okay.
That works fine. What they don't miss the first time, they'll see it the second.
It was there and it was there again, so that
Yeah, I
people
just-
aren't upset with
I
you.
just-
Now,
yeah,
is
you
there
do
any
that.
conflict between the two versions?
No.
No,
But it's so much cleaner, no
yes.
comparison.
Because it does have the additional sentence about convenience to the applicant, may be included in larger, but that's actually a different thing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to approve this?
Well, you can, or you can choose to, if you feel like you want to make some significant revisions, have me revise it and bring it back to you. You can make revisions tonight and adopt it with the revisions,
Okay.
or you can adopt it as is.
Okay. Does anyone want any revisions made? Any language change at this point?
Good.
If not, then will somebody make a motion to accept this as presented to us?
I make a motion that we accept the changes to the minor works. Is that right?
Mhm.
I make a motion we accept this as is.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yep.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None. So this draft has been accepted now.
Okay, so tomorrow or the next couple of days, I will revise the on-site or
Okay.
the online website page accordingly.
Okay. So our next item is the proposal by the Prevention of Demolition by Neglect Committee. We have a document, I think, about that.
Yes.
Yes, so there's a
So what would y'all like to share with us?
8-page piece
Yeah.
on that. So the current, as far as we can tell, the current prevention of demolition by neglect list, the reason I say it that way is the most recent one I could find was from February 16, 2018, and that's what we had to start with. has the properties listed as shown on page 1, essentially. And those are also prioritized. The first group of 5 is high priority, the next group of 5 is medium priority, and the third group of 5 was low priority. That's pretty interesting.
What does that mean? Does that mean that the
So-
person would know that they're a low priority?
No. So it's essentially high priority. It's the order in which the administrator is essentially tasked to move forward. So, for example, one of the first steps is to write letters to the various property owners. And then there is a long drawn out process for the entire, from beginning to end. So, which can take a lot of staff time. So if we start with all of them at once, some of the lower priority ones could get done at first, but remove resources, time, from the efforts to take care of the higher priority ones.
So it's just for your workload.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. But of course, the reason they're higher priority is because of the condition and or the importance of that particular resource. So, one that is you may note. There's 2 that you may notice aren't on here. One is the Elks Building. Elks Building?
Yes.
It was on the list, but it was listed as removed.
Oh, my.
So, but in 2013. So we did go and look at it, or I did, and I found some very minimal things on it, other than that stairway down to the basement next to the theater. But that didn't bring it to the level of demolition by neglect. It's just very badly maintained and horrible, stinky little stairway. So it's maybe more of a maintenance question. So it's not on the list, or it wasn't on the list in 2018, so it isn't on here now. And then the other one is the one on Bern Street that we approved last year. The lady came in and she did some renovations and such. It was referred to as having been on the demolition by neglect list at the time we were reviewing it. Wait, let me back up. At the time we were reviewing it, we referred to the fact that it had been on the demolition by neglect list, and I didn't see it on the list, so it must have been removed at some point for some reason or missed. Could be another possibility. So it's not on the list, but it doesn't need to be on the list anyway because it's fine now. So anyway, so those were the 2 that seem to be potentially questionable. So if we move to the next page, the committee would like to take action, or to adjust the list with the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 properties, to add 5 and remove 1. So the first 2 is high priority, the third one as medium priority, and the last 2 as low priority, and then remove 618 East Front Street, which is on the list on the first page, so as a low priority. And then there was the question mark removal anyway. So,
aren't they overworking on that 214 Pollock now?
yes, so here we have pictures. These are actually from back in June. So if you remember, the house used to be entirely coated with Tyvek. You can see it now has siding on most of it. There is some Tyvek left. And just yesterday I was out and they're still working on it. So, for example, the porch floor you see on the right-hand side there, they were finishing that off just yesterday. Also, they were preparing 2 of the original window frames, which were laying in the yard, but they were preparing them with some new trim on them so that they could put them back in. So those are 2 more pieces that they're working on. So the other thing the committee is aware of is the fact that the city has been on their case because the owners had an agreement with the city that they would have been complete with the project 12 months ago or something. And since that obviously didn't happen, the building inspections people and I guess it's housing, I forget what it's called, minimum housing, is enforcing them to finish off the project with it, and they've negotiated a new agreement with the owner to complete by the end of 2020.
Oh, goodness.
So they do have a new contractor there that seems to be a good contractor. The owner has had bad experiences with contractors before, so things seem a lot better now. But nevertheless, it's still not in a good condition and maybe should be on the demolition by neglect list, and the committee recommends high priority, especially considering its location in proximity to a lot of
Bed and breakfasts.
visitors, locations where visitors are present. So this is the second one for high priority. And this actually is these are photographs that are now quite old because just in the past few weeks, so this photograph also was from June, just in the past few weeks they've been doing quite a lot of work on this. The owner has also gotten a new contractor that appears to be a legitimate contractor. And so they have even replaced this up top that's essentially particle board. They've replaced that with wood siding. And they've been replacing rotten pieces of wood siding all around the building with new wood siding. So you'll also see in this picture, this area here is totally open. That's been closed with some more wood siding. They described to me that they, on the other side, on the left side, on this side over here, that they've replaced a pier that is part of the foundation for the structure. It's a project that's also underway. So, a month ago, this was, like I said, in worse condition than it is today, and so the committee suggested that it be added as a high priority.
It's looking good.
It's looking much better.
It really does. It's one of my favorites.
So I did speak to the contractor finally today. So the first time I ever was able to find anyone there on site and speak to them. And I did explain a lot of the requirements and also that they will have to fill out an application for all this work, right?
Yeah.
And get an approval from you guys. So I have to send him an email tomorrow giving him the application and all the information. But I did tell him that we would expect him to be at the design review meeting in October. So he knows the deadline for that is like October 3rd or whatever it is, the first Monday in October. So anyway, so that is looking promising. All right, the next one, this one, they recommended medium priority. I believe this and the Queen Street one, I believe, were reported by the Hydro people. Mm-hmm. Is that it?
I think so.
412.
Yeah, 412 Metcalf.
Yes, it was.
So now this one, medium priority, I'm not sure exactly what all is supposed to be so horribly wrong with this. I did notice it needs some paint. There also is a piece of the roof, which over here on the left, which you can see from the right only, that here is a close-up. This area of the roof, I don't know what's going on in this. So
If I may.
that might be one of the issues.
If I may
Yep.
interject for just a moment. The house, this house had an area where the critters were getting inside the house.
Okay.
And the person that lived next door in the duplex was looking at this house, and he noticed where there were vines and that sort of thing coming through the woodwork.
Okay.
And he also noticed that little critters were going inside of a hole on the side of the house.
Okay, all right, let me take a note here. 412 Metcalf. So critters. All right. So, all right. That's information I didn't have before, so I wasn't sure what the big deal was, other than the neighbors did say that the house has been vacant for several years.
Mm-hmm.
So that would lead one to think, would support, having vines and things growing inside. All right, or critters living inside or traversing through inside. So, all right, so that's that one. 209 Johnson Street, all the way down towards the river, right? This is the one that had a huge tree fall on it from Florence. That tree has since been removed, and now we see the bit of damage that has been caused. So here's a zoom in on that. So it's essentially the peaks of the house and this porch seem to have been damaged. Other than that, it seems mostly a matter of paint and cleaning. The awning did get damaged a little as well. It looks like a metal thing.
This house never had tear out after the storm.
Never had what?
Tear out after the storm.
Tear out?
Tear out, because remember, the storm surge was really high. That house is really low.
Mm-hmm.
So like 5 feet of water probably went through that house. And they've never torn anything out.
Oh, never a tear out.
No.
Gotcha. So
it is as it was when the water.
So the inside may be horrible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The thing is, we can't do anything about that, but and from the outside, the roof has some missing shingles, perhaps from the wind, but that is about it, as far as we can tell, without actually getting on the property. So these bushes hide a lot on all sides. So this is why it's a low priority, suggested as a low priority. And it has been abandoned ever since Florence.
And there's still an old car on the side of the house.
Yep.
If we can't go in, Matt, how do we know that there's not water coming through that roof?
Well, we would assume that there probably is here on the corners, but that is just a small bit compared to the entire house. So anyway, and again, these are the suggestions of the committee. So 217 Hancock Street, they would also like to add as a low priority. Now, we don't have more recent photos, these are from 2019, but it shows the main concern here is this upper gable peak on this side here. Apparently it's been like that for years, and certainly since 2019, and I think the earlier photographs had it as well. So there's concern about that compromising this house. It also does need some paint and such. The siding may
I was going to say the windows are out of the second story of that house.
What?
But the windows are missing at the moment.
Yeah.
From the second story.
Oh, really?
This is the house behind my street.
Do you know the historic name of that house by chance?
I would, yes. 2017 Hancock. Why, do you?
Well, is it the Fenner House, maybe?
Nobody lives in
So-
that house, do they?
No, there's a house next door that
Yeah.
the guy lives in Washington D.C. and comes back here occasionally. And supposed to be working on that house, but they've
It's
been working
the
on that
Fenner
house.
Oliver
for
House.
Okay, so they have a work plan,
They have a what?
a work plan to repair the house with the
Oh.
commission, which you're probably not aware of, or
No.
Oh.
maybe our committee wasn't aware of, that was relatively active before my recent involvement.
Yeah,
We
they
can
worked on it
call
for a while and
Tim.
then it stopped.
We can call Tim Thompson, and he can probably give us an overview of what that agreement might have been.
Oh, so that might be similar. Is that an agreement with the city then?
Well, with this board.
Oh, okay.
When was this put in
As
place?
part of a prevention of demolition by neglect proceeding of sorts, as I understand it, but I don't know the details.
From before or after the remodel?
Well, the problem with this particular property is that the repairs are very slow in coming, and they have a very admirable goal of a full
Yeah.
restoration. I think it's an old family home,
Mhm,
if
it
I'm
is.
not mistaken, and
It
these
is.
are, the heirs
Mhm,
who
right.
are trying to salvage the property and repair it. And so we do have some documentation of some kind, although it's been a long
Do
time
you remember
since
when
we
that
as a
was put in
board have
place?
monitored it.
Yeah.
When was that put in place, do you know?
Well, I don't know, but it was, more than 6 years ago, right?
Wow.
Or more than 10 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Because they worked on it gung ho for a little bit, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and
But they
then it
haven't
just
done anything in
stopped.
the
So
last 3 years.
Correct. And so I think I have to look in my files, but I think I've got some kind of correspondence about, our interaction with them and what their,
Sure. So that'd be good.
What
If you
the
can-
goals were for accomplishing.
Right, all right. Well, I'll look for something like that, but if you have something at your fingertips, that would be awesome. to
Yeah, well,
send
it's not as useful as I make it sound.
Okay, but Tim Thompson.
But we'll
I-
talk to Tim, and he is intimately familiar with
Okay,
the details and perhaps even brokered the agreement
right, right.
that they're loosely
On
following.
behalf of the HPC.
And one more comment on 209 Johnson Street. It's a shame if there's nothing we can do about that, because I think, what if several people in New Bern, in the historic district, decided not to prune any trees, not to work this, not to fix their fence, not to fix the roof? New Bern would go down real quick.
So that might be more a situation for minimum housing than for us. Because
For
minimum
who?
housing will come along and cut the grass and send you an extraordinary bill.
Yeah, actually, more code enforcement, right, code enforcement.
In my previous life, I
that's
was the
Nancy.
chair of minimum housing for Greensboro, so.
Right.
So
So
who does that?
Nancy in the building inspections department. So you could report it to her.
I thought the one across the street on Hancock next to Port Charles was on the list too. It's on that alley.
I believe it might be on the original list. Yes, 301. Yeah, it's still on the list.
Oh.
It's on as a medium priority. So, what the pictures I'm showing you now are just the ones that we're changing by adding them to the list, or in one case, removing it from the list. All right, everything else stays the same. This isn't the whole list, just the ones that are changing. So then at 618 East Front Street, also unfortunately don't have any more recent photographs. These are from 2012, these photographs, but this is just to remind you of which building we're talking about. And currently, recently, there's been a lot of remodeling that's essentially been completed. So we would like to just remove this one from the list. It's currently on the list. We'd like to remove it from the list. So that's that. So that does take a vote by the HPC to make these changes. You can also recommend changing, the recommendations in any way, whether it be, changing the priority of any of the existing ones, or changing the priority or eliminating any of the new changes. You're free to do that as well.
You're looking for a motion to remove 618?
So we're looking for a motion to accept the proposal by
Accept the whole overall.
Yeah, that would be if you wanted. Otherwise, you'd be doing 6 different motions. So, but you could do them all in one, or you could do it one at a time if you want.
Let's see, Joe, James are on the Prevention of Demolition by Neglect Committee. Was there a
And
third?
Peggy.
Okay, Miss Peggy.
You're
Go, Jim, you got it. I'll second it. Yeah.
I move we accept the proposal as read.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
All right.
Okay, so the next item on our list, we're down to 7, is the administrator's report. A has to do with COAs issued. And so he's got a list of majors and minors.
Ever since the August 18th meeting.
All right. And B is report on a COA extensions.
Did we miss something?
C.
We did, we skipped the new.
We missed item C above. Sorry.
Create the ownership.
Oh, we did, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, we did. I was moving along. Okay. Create new historic owners support committee.
Okay. Yes.
What are we doing about
So-
that? Did we not already vote on that or
No,
talk
we
about
did
doing
not.
that?
We've discussed it twice, at
Okay.
least. First as an initial idea, and looking for HPC members who may be interested. Ellen has voiced her opinion twice to be that person, but we would also like to see if any other people any other HPC members might like to be on that committee. The proposal here, I suppose it's being made both by Ellen and myself, would be that the committee has the kind of mission that's mentioned in the first paragraph, and then it be comprised of at least one HPC member, but potentially 2 or 3. But then also include non-HPC members on the committee. So that could include at least 2 people who have expressed interest so far. One is Dr. I forgot his name.
Oh, I have it.
Dr. Hughes? Oh, that's, Dr. Holmes, sorry.
Dr. Holmes.
He's the pastor of the church there at Greenwood Cemetery. And is very active in the community, especially in the Dryborough neighborhood there. Also, the director, executive director of the Historical Society.
Mickey Miller.
Mickey Miller has mentioned interest to Ellen, and I'm still trying to play phone tag with her to get her commitment to the committee. But we would also, with Ellen, she also kind of represents some faction of the Preservation Foundation. And then we, at some point, may like to get representatives from the Ghent community, the Grafton Reed Park community, or others in town as well. Ellen and I talked today about this. We might see if Bernard George would be interested, Newsom Williams, Fred Smith or Willie Perry from the King Solomon Lodge. And then James, we'd love to have James. And also George, we think would be a good addition to the committee. James also may be able to convince his wife to become a committee member as well. So,
Ellen, do you have Ann Chow on that? Because she's very, very active in the Duffield.
who?
Ann Shout, she
Oh.
lives on the corner of East
She
Front.
lives in the Caleb Brabham house.
East Front and Johnson Street.
And Shout.
Ann Shout.
I think there's a C in there. It's not like me, shout.
SCH,
Uh-huh.
just like
Oh, you
Shelley.
T.
Okay. And she represents what?
She was very, very active in working with Duffield and was getting committees together to go out and do cleanup out there, some massive cleanup. She was trying to organize, and it was about the time of the hurricane before.
Okay.
So 2 years ago this week.
So another person that was mentioned was Ethel Staten, or
Oh, she's
Yes.
a must-have.
she was the first person I contacted. She said no, because she is getting rid of all of her commitments to committees at this point. She says she's too old to continue doing all that. So I did ask her if she would, however, remain as a consultant or advisor to the committee, to which she agreed and immediately sent me about a dozen emails. So,
Be careful what you ask for.
yeah, so which has been great, really. I've learned a lot. So already from her. So anyway, some of the items that we've been thinking about that the committee could work on would be historic preservation tax credit education, workshops, meetings, or videos, historic preservation grant applications, gathering, analyzing, and mapping data on historic resources to support the efforts, supporting historic education efforts, and any of a number of other actions, one of which I thought I remembered was to perhaps do an awards program, so that again, the idea is to encourage property owners to undertake things, and when they have done some nice things, to appreciate them. So that's one thing, which actually brings me, maybe the HPC wants to actually have an awards committee of its own. So no reason people can't get 2 awards. Anyway, then lastly, the committee, we anticipate, would work with other organizations and persons such as the State Historic Preservation Office. John Wood has already volunteered to do workshops for tax credit information. Preservation NC, I know, has been pushing on, among other things, they've been pushing on historic preservation in the African American community. Then there's the African American Heritage Commission. We heard the training session on that. The National Trust for Historic Preservation may have some efforts we can plug into, and any other organizations, Tryon Palace, who knows? So someone even was thinking, Ellen was maybe even thinking Lowe's has maybe some programs related to construction and things. So
Home restoration.
mm-hmm. So,
George, are you up for this?
Since this is an HPC committee, it would seem to me that all actions by the committee should be approved by a majority vote of this body here at a regular meeting, just like we do with the other committees as well. So that's the proposal. The actual name of the committee could change if this committee is created. Once they convene, I would expect that they may undertake maybe their own mission statement. The one proposed here is just a draft, essentially, or a lead-in. They may take on their own mission statement. They may take on their own, create a better name for the committee than what we currently have. But other than that, we're looking for some action tonight to create the committee. Or discuss it and create it some other time.
So we have a list of several members from here that are going to be on the committee.
Well, neither James nor George. George just learned about it now.
But he did say yes.
His nomination to the committee. He may or may not accept. But and James doesn't even know. Doesn't even know yet.
Well, tell James he's been elected.
Okay. Well, he'll have to agree. So,
So would you like a motion?
Please.
All right, well, I move that we accept this initial mission statement and take action to create what I'm going to call a historic outreach committee, and whose members will be determined by Madam Chair. Anybody want to second that?
No second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Christine,
So if you could put this on our next agenda
yes.
as well for us to review this again and have the committee members.
In place.
So, okay, right. So, so Tripp made it a part of the motion that you would be the one to approve, appoint committee members.
He's appointed, and we've got our comrade who's been appointed, who's not here.
So next.
And Ellen.
And Ellen.
Oh, and Ellen, yes, and Ellen. So we got 3 members right here. So if you all would get together and meet and report to us at our next regular meeting on your new committee.
And be sure to contact James and tell him.
Tell James he's on the committee. That's what he gets for not being here.
Oh, okay.
Tell him that. That's his present. That's his prize.
Sure. He's on the demolition by neglect committee too. So.
Yes.
Well, I'll take that, and you can put him on this one.
Oh, all right.
Tell him to
I
move
drove
off
through
that
Dunedin
committee.
the other week, and I don't think I'll live long enough to
Demolition.
help out.
Yes, you look
I hope it works.
You okay with that, George?
You can't help yourself.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, so we got C done. Now we can go to the administrator's report. And A is a report on the COAs, the majors and the minors.
Right.
Between 8:18 and 9:04. So those are all of those done. Then B, we have some COA extensions.
That's correct. Underlined, issued since prior regular meeting. So actually, the 2 that are listed there are just in the works as of today, and would probably be completed tomorrow or the next day. So the first one is 416 to 418 Broad Street. That's the brick townhouses that we approved last year in September on Broad Street.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they did not yet start any work on that, so they would like an extension. So they will be getting that probably tomorrow. And then 501 Metcalf Street, that was approved last October. And I attempted to get him to try and start work on his rear parking area, but he's not sure he'll be able to actually get that started before October 16th. So he would still like an extension, so he'll get that then probably tomorrow or Friday. And none of these extensions require your action at this point.
No.
It only requires your action when they ask for something other than a year.
Okay.
So it's possible that the Broad Street one may come back a year from now, and since they already got one extension, I don't think I'm allowed to give a second extension, but that would then require HPC action for that, so.
And the one on Metcalf is good until the 16th of October, so if he is not finished by until 2021, never mind.
2021.
Never mind.
Yeah, the new extension will be up to 2021.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we did the SHPO training, right?
Right. And we've got enough people who looked at those. You sent an email to me that have looked at the videos and written up things. I know I did 3, and somebody else has done, so that we've
That's
done
right.
our part that we're
Yep.
supposed to do.
So I think we're good on that from you guys.
Okay.
I still need to write my 3rd one, and then I'm good. And then we're all good. So,
Okay.
but it has to be done by the end of
Get,
September.
get,
so.
Thank you
get
for
to
doing
it
that.
and get your job done.
I know.
I know. Naughty boy.
Now that you're busy.
Okay. So that's SHPO
No
training.
going home after the meeting tonight. Gotta
That-
get back to work.
That's right. So other items and updates. So we got the King Solomon Lodge got the grant, right?
Yes, they did.
Good.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Yep. So they got $15,000 award, and that's to produce a historic preservation plan. It's not to do any construction. It's to produce a plan. Now, the plan is, I don't know if you remember, it's essential because there's going to be so many different changes or modifications made to a very important property, including in the interior, that the team needs to know what the priorities are and what the overall plan is, what to keep, what kind of time period to keep things in, et cetera. So for the most part, that's what the plan is for.
If you have not been by there recently, it is very much worth going by.
Yeah.
And we should feel a little self-congratulatory about this, maybe even a lot.
No.
Because we started this ball rolling when we made a site visit there as a commission, and they have just,
Did they?
it's really
It's all
exciting.
gone.
Well, they understand their own importance in a way they probably didn't
Didn't
previously.
understand before.
Yeah, it's really an amazing thing, and Cambridge Woodworks is just doing
Well,
this
they-
meticulous work.
That was also magnified, I don't know, 50-fold by their recognition at the Preservation NC conference, where they were publicly awarded a grant from them for construction work. And that is a statewide recognition, and they were the only organization to receive any grant from Preservation NC that year for that kind of project. So that was big. That was big too. But so the ball starts rolling, right, and then bigger things can happen. So.
Yep, that's wonderful.
Hopefully that's what's going to happen with our new committee too, right?
Yes.
Get that ball rolling.
What's the next step in getting a
So the next
consultant?
step is they did send me all of the contract documents, which I've yet to look at, but I am to go over them with the finance department because the city is acting as the go-between, essentially, between the partnership, which actually receives the money, but we're the ones that are controlling the money, and there isn't actually any money. We control the process, I guess. And then, well, first of all, it's federal money that's going through the state Historic Preservation Office, who then grants the award to various entities, and in this case, the city, which is essentially the pass-through to the partnership. So it's a chain of events, and we're the second to last part of the chain. So we don't handle any money. We just kind of approve the whole process, and essentially it's a reimbursement anyway. So the partnership has to spend the money, and then they submit the receipts, and then the
So do
reports
they-
and all that stuff.
Does the partnership select the consultant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the partnership is between the Preservation Foundation and the lodge.
Right.
And
Is there a list of, or a pool of consultants that
There could be.
we
if
could
you-
give
if
to
you
the
need them.
partnership to?
Yep. And I think
help
a
begin
lot
that
of
process?
those answers are maybe more specifically detailed in the contract
Yeah.
documents,
Yeah.
which I haven't looked at yet. So, but from what I understand, the way they describe the program, that yes, that's the way that works. Just remembering off the top of my head.
Very good.
Almost brought those documents with me. Yeah.
Okay, under D, the resiliency plan.
The resiliency plan, so there was a second meeting for the plan. There was also a second team meeting for the plan via Zoom a couple of weeks ago. But also since then, there's now been a public meeting for the plan last Thursday, I believe it was. And that was a combination of in-person and Zoom. So there was a group of people here in this room. There was a group of people, well, 3 people from the team and a police officer in the conference room at our office. So no one from the public, I don't believe. And then there were 30, 40, 50 people on Zoom for that meeting. So they did the presentation, which is now available as a recording. So you can kind of actually see that if you weren't already. Let's see, who did I see was on that? Peggy, you were
I
on
watched
that.
it on Zoom.
Yes. So who else? Was anybody else? I don't know if it's on.
is that recording on YouTube or is it on the city's website?
I'm not sure because I don't know where the Zoom recordings go. So, but that would be a good question. And there also is a web page for the project on the city's website. So you can go to that. It's kind of some basic things about it. And then lastly, there also is a survey for the project. So you all can go in, I think there's a link probably on that webpage to a survey, and then it will ask you all kinds of questions about resiliency for New Bern. Or relevant to resiliency to New Bern. So I think I did the survey way back at the beginning, and it asks if you know if you're in a flood zone or not, etc. So.
Okay. And then I guess our last item will be the item that we're going to add under.
That's correct. So I do have that on the screen. Here we go. So,
So does everybody kind of, out of the discussion, know what happened as who met? Peggy and my comrade and myself, and who else was there? You were there? So it was just us, right? Met, when, it was on Tuesday afternoon?
Monday, wasn't it? No, it was after Labor Day. Yes, the next day was Tuesday, the 8th.
Yeah, Tuesday. And so we were there about an hour and a half. And well, he's got it right there. And so what we came up with was, we sent Matt off with a list of items about what this new area would look like. And my comrade over here was supposed to come up with a name. And Tripp, did you come up with one?
I've had a few bad ideas.
Okay, we'll take your bad ideas and see. So Tripp was going to come up with a name of this new development pattern. Because that space is like nothing else that we have in New Bern, all put together. And so then Matt has, if you'll put it up on the screen, Matt has written out a description of our hereto name that's going to be coming. The new right now development pattern is what it's called. And he has incorporated into the write-up the
Characteristics?
characteristics, thank you, I was trying to think of the words, characteristics that this new area would have, considering how the lots are laid out, that they're long and they're narrow, and the fact that we did not want them doing any kind of parking in the front yard. We did not want the houses to look like, you know how down at the beach, they have those
Yes.
houses on the second
Yes.
floor,
Yes.
and you can park underneath that from the front. That we did not want that to be like that, that they would have, if they were gonna have a garage, they had to come in from the back. And so Matt wrote up this description of this area and what it is, what we thought it needed to look like considering what we got to work with. So if you all can read that, is it big enough for you to read, or do you want me to read it to you? For consideration for this new development plan.
Good job, Matt. Good job.
You did a very nice job of including everything, and once we...
I threw it in everything but the kitchen sink.
Right. And so once we approve of the description of the development pattern, then we need to go through and make sure that we have guidelines that support each one of these things that we have in here.
I see your point.
So if you all can, is that the whole thing right there, ma'am?
No, that's just the first paragraph.
That's the first paragraph.
Which basically is the basics plus the front stuff. And then we can move to the, when you're ready, when everybody seems to be ready, you can move to the sides and the back.
Is Americans a typo, or did you?
No.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I had
Funny,
that
when I
circle.
was in Matt's
That's in
office
the- that's in the
today, I was
second
like, what's
paragraph.
it with the
Yeah, I had that circle.
No foreigners in this neighborhood.
I thought, what is he talking about, Americans?
Well, as you all probably know, Europeans and other cultures have a much closer social distance, for lack of a better word, than Americans. And so the kind of space that 10 feet provides works better for Americans than it would for American culture than it would for other cultures, in my opinion, based on what a little bit I know about that. So we can throw that out, but I thought it might be helpful providing some context to as a cultural context for some of these things.
Okay.
I think that's an excellent idea. Because I know
Yeah.
exactly what
Okay,
you're
now
talking
that you
about.
explain
And
that.
also to understand that 20 feet. My house in Elizabeth City the porch is about 20 feet from the sidewalk, but it's only 2 feet off the ground. But you find yourself kind of leaning over, shouting to people on the sidewalk, or they end up having to come up to the porch or closer and stuff, because that American social distance is closer than 20 feet, right? 20 feet, you're, I don't know, farther than I am to you now, right? So, anyway, I just felt like maybe that's appropriate. But
What are barn lights?
barn lights. So I put them in quotes. I'm not sure that's the thing here, but generally it's the kind of light that's on an arm, and then it has this big, almost like globe that's open on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but people could think it's almost anything else. Could be those like pan-like lights that with the bulb hanging down, that could be a barn light,
Yeah.
on an arm. Or the other one I just thought of when you asked me that was what's also called wall packs, which
Yeah.
are basically a rectangle that sticks on the side of a building and glows. The whole thing glows top to bottom, and usually very bright. So, sconces would be better, things that are shining up and down. And the idea that there's just not a lot of bright, glaring lights, but maybe the barn lights thing should maybe be eliminated.
We may not want to
Because
get,
it's not clear what that is.
well, I don't know how much we want to get in the weeds with that either.
Right.
That
So
might be-
these may be some things we then get in the weeds with at the next meeting, at the design review meeting. Maybe tonight it's appropriate to kind of wade through, kind of first of all, understand what the organization of it is, what the intentions are with this. If there's too much detail, because I noticed this is a full page of, margin to margin. None of the other patterns are that much. So, may just need to be made more succinct. Getting rid of Americans, is maybe appropriate because it, starts to get.
To accommodate current culture.
Right. Or just get rid of that entirely, just so that it becomes more
It's kind of
succinct.
interesting that we're describing this, and we didn't create it, a developer
Right.
did.
Right.
And what were they trying to create? when they-
Right.
when they
Money.
did this?
I know.
Money,
I was describing the vision that the committee and
Developer
I
should have
had of this, in its detail.
Well, and
Now,
that's
some
why I
of the
said-
things could be handled by the actual guidelines. So, for example, the thing about no floodlights, area lights, or barn lights thing in the new
Guidelines.
development pattern area, could be a guideline.
That detracts anything from the house or the historical.
Or no driveways out front,
Yeah.
or, that kind of stuff.
Good point.
So are we supposed to decide tonight or when we have our meeting?
Yeah, you can decide tonight
But we
if you
can
want,
decide,
but
we
I-
can decide tonight,
Oh,
that's why
that's
we're
right, we can.
discussing it, and the question is, can we decide tonight, can we go along
I would
with
say we
this?
can't just because it
Let's
didn't
not.
happen.
Yeah.
Let's not?
Yeah, let's not decide tonight.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say we can't anyway because it wasn't really on the agenda. We just added it here as a discussion item, part of the HPC administrator's report.
I thought it was interesting that you say shade trees, which I kind of like, except there aren't any there. One of the things about that area is it's so stark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sidewalks would
It's
be
almost
awesome.
offensively stark.
No,
Awesome trees.
I think they actually do have some
There
small,
are- there are
some
si-
small trees there, but they have to grow up still. And
And
it's
there are
only on
sidewalks.
one side. No,
One
they're
side.
on both sides of the street, right?
Yeah, there are sidewalks.
They're pitiful, but they're there.
And streetlights.
Yeah.
Well, and so we're such tree huggers. We're always pitching fits about trees. That's
Yeah.
just,
And Matt, that's another thing. Should we think about requiring shade trees in that little piece of yard? You know what I'm saying?
In the front yard.
Yeah.
No,
So
that'll cut their view of
You
the
have
river.
10 feet.
Okay, can you show us the next paragraph that
Oh, yeah.
people can look at,
Yep.
and the
So-
next little bits there?
Yeah, and so that's the rest of it right there, side yards and backs. Sides and backs are that paragraph.
That's a good idea. With these motion lights, not necessarily area lights.
Oh, do I have that on there twice? Oh, right, because that's the back. Right, we don't want them in the back either. But that's the same thing as maybe that should just be a guideline.
What should be a guideline?
The lighting thing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Then it occurred to me that, in the back there, they're going to want to have security lighting. And a lot of times those are just floodlights, right? But they don't have to be.
They also have the ones that are motion.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And only come on when it's been triggered, and only stay on like maybe 10 minutes at
Mhm.
tops.
Right.
And that's what I've got.
Okay, so we need to have a meeting next week. And is it, if we meet before Wednesday, then the Planning and zoning is on Thursday, is that what you said?
That's correct. Right.
Okay,
So now, Tripp, you were mentioning a design review session first?
Well, that's just a preference.
Because the special meeting would be an official public meeting that would be recorded in the whole deal.
I guess what I lack a clear understanding of is the sequence of, or the tightness of time frame that we need
Yeah.
to meet to achieve certain milestones.
Right.
But just as a personal preference, I don't mind debating these things as part of our public meeting, but it's more comfortable maybe in a design review setting.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess you could even have a design review on Monday and then a special meeting on Wednesday.
Right, and I guess it's the same notice requirement?
Yep, like
Or do we have to give notice for design review?
2 days, I think it is, 3 days, 2 or 3 days.
So, maybe we could
So were you thinking,
plan both ahead of time.
so you're thinking at design review, she's going to bring these cases in front of us at design review?
No, I was thinking that would give us a chance to discuss what we're reading here tonight.
Yeah.
And,
You're going
we
to
would
call it
talk-
design review, but we're not going to have anybody.
And nobody else can hear.
I prefer not to have our initial reading of this be on TV, I guess is where I'm getting
Okay,
at.
okay.
Just because, it's not as easy to ask difficult questions
Okay, I understand.
and we can be as disorganized as we naturally like to be at design review and still, all this is on TV
Yes,
tonight,
this
unfortunately.
is.
So,
Yes. So, if we have if we have a meeting on Monday, and then we have to have an official meeting on Wednesday before the planning and zoning, is that, I'm trying to get in my mind officially how this needs to go.
Yep. So I can carry the timeline forward for you.
Yeah.
So if we meet that deadline for the Thursday deadline for the P and Z, I think it could also be Friday because I think she said she sends out the packets on Friday. Let's just keep it Thursday.
What date is this, please?
1 week from tonight is next Wednesday.
Okay.
Right? So what, 16 and 7, 23,
Okay, thank you.
right? 23rd. And then the Monday one would be the 21st. So,
Where do we meet, Matt? Developmental Services?
well, the design review could be there.
So if we do a meeting.
But social distancing, well, there's 9 of us, plus me, 10.
So it's just going to be us when we meet on the 21st.
And maybe that's just to keep it here.
If we
for
can.
social distancing.
Okay.
So if we meet.
I understand this is awkward, though, kind of the seating.
Gotten used to it.
No, it's okay.
All right, as long as you guys are comfortable with that,
So if we meet on the 21st
right?
and we approve,
You wouldn't approve it on the 21st because it's a design review meeting. It's not a public meeting. It's not televised and all of that. You can only approve things at a televised meeting.
so why are we trying to get it to planning and zoning then?
Well, okay, so if you get on the planning and zoning meeting by their Thursday deadline,
Yes.
approving it before then they will have it on their October.
Well, let me stop you right there when you say if we get on their committee and approving it before then. But I thought you said we couldn't approve it before then because it has to be a public meeting.
Right, so I think the proposal is to have both a meeting on the 21st and the 23rd.
So we're going to,
On the 21st would be the design review meeting,
A work session.
right? A work session.
Mm-hmm.
On the 23rd would be the televised special meeting.
So we're going to have a call special meeting to deal with this issue of
Right.
that,
Just
okay?
this,
And then the 24th or 25th, then it's going to go to planning and zoning.
Right, for their October 6 meeting,
Okay, for the October 6th meeting.
right?
Yep,
At which they can then issue a recommendation to the alderman.
yep.
But it's too late to get that in their agenda packets for the 13th, so it will end up in their packets for the 27th meeting. The aldermen will have their meeting on the 27th, where they will call for a meeting. Now,
Where they will what?
call for a public meeting, or a public hearing, sorry, on the 27th.
They're going to make a date for a public hearing.
Correct. Which
Okay.
would then be, their next meeting is then November 10th. So they could then approve whatever we have approved on the 10th, November 10th, and then we could approve plans based on the new guideline text on the 18th of November. Wait. Yes, 18th of November, that's the third Wednesday. Yep. And I can issue then the COA on the 19th.
Okay, but what we talked about tonight, okay, so this is this is September.
Now, there is a potential that the alderman could act 2 weeks before, but it wouldn't matter because you aren't going to approve it 2 weeks sooner. You're only going to approve it on the 19th.
Wait,
Or
let me-
18th, sorry, November 18th.
Oh.
So,
Just get next week done.
that's the quickest, tightest timeline possible.
So,
And that
All right.
requires you guys to do your 2 meetings next week.
okay.
Well, you
So
send
what
in,
is the next closest interval?
So after that, you mean?
Yeah.
We don't
So
meet
In
December,
other words,
do we?
we didn't last year.
if we
does
did
that just push it to the alderman to the end of November, or does it push them
Yeah,
to the
so
end of
let's,
December?
all right, let's walk it through.
And we
So
don't
if
meet
we
in
just
December
did-
generally.
No special meeting, no special design review. If we took that to the
Oh, yeah.
October design review to do our design review, that's the 7th. And then you would adopt it on the 21st of October.
Right?
It would then go to the P&Z, I'm not sure what the deadline is. Wait, let's use this month as an example. What did we say? The deadline is the 24th of October, which is, I'm sorry. No, September, sorry. 24th of September, which is the second Thursday.
24th of September, I thought
Yep.
you were in October.
And their meeting is October 6th, so they are getting their packet 1 full week and a couple days before. So the Thursday, that's about 10 days before their meeting. So if their November meeting is the first Tuesday, election day, then their deadline must be October 22nd. And so that would be the day after you guys actually approve it on the 21st, right?
Yeah.
So that
So that
works.
could work.
Okay.
So, but then they issue their edict, recommendation to the alderman, who then would set a date on November 24th, right? So now we're already past November
Yeah,
18th.
we're past where we were before.
And they would act on December 8th. And so you would then approve on December 16th.
And we have meetings in December?
Last year
So
we
far,
didn't.
yep.
So
We
why-
didn't last year because I wasn't.
So why are we making that longer more than shorter?
I just wanted to know.
Well, because
To
we're
save us the trouble of having two
Yeah, we're
meetings
taking more
3
time
days in a
to,
row.
Oh.
because we're taking more time on our end.
All right.
So is it in the best
So-
interest to have the meetings next week, the
Yes.
21st and 23rd? And we'll have them
If,
here?
if you want to make the effort to have it approved by the aldermen
By November.
by before your November meeting, regular meeting, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Otherwise, it'll end up being before the December regular meeting.
Right.
However, of course, we did just tell her that we may even act on them in October, in which case you don't have to go the fast track.
Well, it's not going, either way, we won't have our answer by then.
no,
Right.
we won't have our answer for the Board of Aldermen.
Correct.
No, not from
We
the
have
Board
a
of
kind of
Aldermen.
meeting of the minds on what this thing looks like.
So I think what she was asking, though, was if the HPC approves it before the next meeting, say at a special meeting between now and then, or tonight, and passes it on to the P and Z and then to the aldermen, and it's going through that process, would you guys still consider approving their plans based on the fact that you already decided that that's what you want
That is the
as
question.
the guideline,
That is the question she asked.
even though it's not officially the guideline?
Yes, yes. So I suggest that we go ahead and do these 2 meetings next week, I think in good relationships, to go ahead and move this along as quickly as we can. So the design and review meeting for the 21st, we don't have to put that in the paper.
I don't think either of them go in the paper as much as they go on the websites.
Well,
Special meetings.
To the public, okay.
Yeah.
So we will need to do that.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Because I believe all of the design review meetings are advertised meetings.
Are they?
Because you are all
Does it?
together at one place.
Okay. So we need to do that on Monday and then,
The 23rd?
and then the 23rd.
The thing is, though, with the design review work session, it's not an official meeting,
Right.
so maybe it doesn't have that requirement. But it's a meeting where everyone is requested to attend, nobody is required to attend. So it's a voluntary attendance to the design review meetings.
Why don't, after this meeting, why don't you and I get together about sending out an email about this meeting and what we're
Sure,
trying to
sure.
accomplish in that time
Tomorrow
frame?
morning, I can also get some answers about what's required and what's not required.
Okay, that would be fine.
And you can verify submittal dates,
Yeah.
packet dates.
Yeah.
Things
And what,
like that.
and what time would, on Monday the 21st, would you want to put this meeting together?
Oh, yeah.
You've got the
Well, I think it
place.
depends on if we're going to use this room, when you can get this room, right?
Right.
And then you'll know that tomorrow as well.
And you'll know that. And then on the 23rd, we'll have a meeting at 5:30, right?
Sure. Assuming we can get the room again.
We will have a special called meeting on the 23rd at 5:30.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, if
Tentatively here, but if it's not here, we'll have to figure where we can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Whether
the
it be at
purpose
our
of that
conference room
meeting,
or
the
somewhere.
purpose of that meeting is to approve whatever we have gone over on the meeting on the 1st, because it has to be an official meeting. Am I understanding that
Yeah.
correctly?
Yep.
And then we will go from there.
Right.
Okay?
So I would suggest, because I don't know what the requirements are, that you have a vote to call that special meeting. At least that one, but let's at least do both of them.
Okay.
Because votes cost nothing.
Okay, so can we have a motion to do that, to have a called design review on the 21st and a regular meeting special meeting on the 23rd?
I move that we have a meeting on the 21st of September as our regular design meeting. And
Work.
Excuse me. And on the 23rd, on September 23rd, we have a special meeting to discuss this
New development.
new development plan.
A second.
Text amendment.
Okay, and all of these are, places are to be announced depending on where you can find us a spot to meet.
That's correct.
Okay, all of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Do we have any other items on the agenda at this point? Does anybody know? Okay, all right. We are adjourned at 9:19 PM on this day.
All right.